A little feel-good start to this Friday morning. Pascal Siakam, an all-star. Pretty cool video the Pacers sent out last night, and Pascal's reaction and coaching staff celebrating that. I think they had like a sponsor event somewhere, very swanky last night. Obviously, the Pacers got another game tomorrow. Rivalry renewed tonight in West Lafayette. I know a lot of people like to circle that on the calendar. Certainly, WWE in town. I got 2 episodes into the McMahon documentary last night.
No, good for you.
Tell.
I was on the edge of my seat, boys.
Yeah.
Look at you. I tell you what, by the time WrestleMania gets here, you're going to move Mark Dighton out of the way. You're going to be Mr. Pro Wrestling. I can see it happening already.
I was going to say, Mark will be watching golf every weekend, and I'll be watching wrestling every Monday night.
He'll be cheering on Russell Henley.
Kevin will be wearing shirts that say Bowen 316 on them and everything.
Isn't Russell Henley leading the Pebble Beach? I think is that his name? Help me.
Up there?
Well, if you don't know, come on. How do I know what's going on? It's on Sports Center this morning.
Russell Henley's a hell of a pull at 7:01 this morning.
It was either that or Shane Lowry, who hit another hole-in-one yesterday.
Hey.
Something you've never done.
Rory
How about
and
that?
Shane. No, but those Mizunos, maybe this year.
One day.
Will help me out. And then last item, and shout out to listener Preston for this.
Okay.
I had kind of forgotten about this stat. Do you know the only team that Patrick Mahomes is yet to beat in an NFL regular season game?
I think I know this. They're just down the street, aren't they?
Really?
Hang the banner, folks, inside of Lucas as they start Royal Rumble tomorrow night.
I like that.
Can get Jim Irsay in the ring. He can point up to the rafters. Would that be a good little plot in Royal Rumble? I mean, you guys, Mark especially, you pay Irsay coming out? Maybe pointing up to the banner?
Might be a long, walkway and stuff.
Boy, I don't know.
They put him on a golf cart.
Yeah, I don't know if Irsay's going to get in the ring or not. It's better than AFC finalist.
Can you name the 2 quarterbacks that beat Patrick Mahomes for the Colts in a regular season game? Mahomes did beat the Colts in a playoff game, so that's why I think people are a little bit confused by that. But 2 wins.
Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew.
Jacoby Brissett and play the audio, Mark Dighton. Who do we have?
Come on, play
Matt
it.
Ryan.
Oh, it's Matty Ice. See, Matty Ice did something for you.
2022 season.
How dare you say Matty Ice was a bust?
Week 3, Lucas Oil Stadium. Mahomes goes home a loser. So there's your feel-good Friday morning.
That's good. Just don't fall in a pothole on the way to work.
We have Matt Ryan.
Thank you, Aditi, for that. We're starting to get into the rain plus pothole season.
It's brutal.
It is.
I dodged one today, and
Boys,
I was like,
you got to be locked in like it's lap 200 of the Indianapolis 500.
You're damn right you do. Remember last year I popped a tire, right here by Five Guys on my way into work, and I tell you what, there was one where, we could have all got our families, and we all could have just sat in that pothole with our families and enjoyed a nice little dinner from Buffalo Wild Wings.
Might be some Royal Rumble fans that are camping out in a pothole this weekend. Good Friday morning to you. That was Andy Sweeney. I'm Kevin Bowen, Mark Dighton on the lovely Matt Ryan cut right there. Greg Rakestraw going to join us at 8, but we started kind of this tradition last year. Indiana, Purdue get back on the schedule, or whenever they do, renew their rivalry, and especially when it's a weekday game like tonight is. We try to get an ex-player on. I'm really looking forward to both conversations today. At 8:30, we have a player that I think is a very good player at Purdue during his time, but he's really remembered largely for being the man on the free throw line when Robert Montgomery tossed the chair the other way. That would be Steve Reed. He's going to join us coming up at 8:30. And then at 9 o'clock, certainly one of the decorated scorers to ever put on an Indiana uniform. That would be one A.J. Guyton.
Can I tell you my A.J. Guyton story real quick?
Oh, sure.
Because I don't want to tell him because, it's just we have things that we got to get to. We have basketball that we got to get to. And by the way, with A.J. Guyton, I'm not saying Steve Reed's any different, but, A.J. Guyton does a lot of commentary, Field of 68. He does a lot of commentary around Indiana, around IU. So he's following what's going on with this team, for better or worse. A.J. Guyton is locked in to these games. So he was taken, second round by the Chicago Bulls, if I'm not mistaken? Remember when he was drafted by any chance? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think it was 32nd overall, so maybe he's back in the first round.
2,000-point scorer at IU.
Yes, he was. Oh, yeah. Well, you play that much as a freshman. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of points. And in those days, guys are staying much longer, obviously, in college. But my family was... And I'm pretty sure this is right. My family was on vacation. I want to say we maybe even were at Disney. And I liked AJ Guyton a great deal. And so, when you're with your family, it's just one big hotel room, right? It's not like me and my brother had our own, $300 a night hotel room at Disney or whatever it was. And so I remember it was kind of later into the night. Everyone's asleep. I'm watching the NBA draft still, and AJ Guyton gets taken by the Chicago Bulls, and I let out a scream, and my parents both woke up in fear that something happened to me.
Oh,
that
wow.
someone was breaking in
now,
to the
was
hotel.
This a positive scream?
Oh yeah, no, I liked AJ Guyton, and I was cheering for him and the Bulls, obviously, that got him, and it was really cool. Now I was very happy as a very young man, and I remember my parents waking up like, "What's wrong with you? Like, why are you shrieking?" And that's because AJ Guyton got drafted. So I've never interviewed him. I'm excited at 9:00. One of the great players. I know he was kind of in that awkward spot with Indiana, obviously at the end of the night era.
Right.
But AJ Guyton, one of the greats of all time.
Looking forward to both of those conversations. So, again, 8:30 Steve Reed, 9:00 for AJ Guyton. Getting Pacers back in action tomorrow. The Hawks are in town. This is a 5 o'clock tip earlier because of Royal Rumble. The Hawks have lost 1 million in a row. I kind of forgot they do have the number 1 pick. Risa Shea.
Yeah, they do. They do. I've seen him play a couple times.
And he's done a nice job.
Yeah, he's a fun player. I think he could be pretty
He's
good.
averaging double figures here for the Hawks. So for anybody that cares, from a visiting standpoint, the Pacers, I would expect them to be a big favorite. We'll see about Benedict Mathurin and Andrew Nembhard getting back in action. I wasn't too surprised by the All-Star announcement last night. I honestly thought it played out not only how it probably should have, but I think it's probably best case scenario for the Pacers. Like, to me, Pascal Siakam deserved the All-Star nod.
Agreed.
He has been Mr. Dependable, and to me, that is such a compliment. I know the word dependable is probably not maybe how necessarily fans view it, or really anybody views it in the light of like, oh my gosh, you are an elite, top 12 player in the Eastern Conference. But he's just so damn reliable, and I'm glad to see the Eastern Conference coaches recognize that. His 3rd All-Star appearance, and I have no issue with Halliburton not making the team.
Yeah, I agree.
First off, he obviously got off to the very slow start, like not even sniffing All-Star caliber. He has played. I think you can make the case in the last month he's played like an All-Star.
I would agree with that.
But
right.
I don't think that overcomes the slow start.
There's so many guards.
And then selfishly, Andy, I just think he needs to sit as in the Eastern time zone for a while and get a little R&R. I mean, that is not something. I mean, this dude has been on, a trip to Thailand with the USA team, and then last year to Paris, and then was obviously just in Paris, and obviously he's traveling the extreme first class, but still, I mean, the All-Star game last year, I'm watching him down there on the floor, and he's got the heat pad during every time out. It's like, all right, it's probably a good thing for him not to go out to the West Coast and spend whatever, 4 days or whatever it is, All-Star weekend. So, again, all in all, I thought deserving. That box to me was checked, and I think selfishly for the Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton, I think it's a good thing he's not an All-Star.
Yeah, I wonder when the Pacers knew. Now, you said they had an event.
Looked like they had some event.
Well, they had the bubbly out. They had the champagne out ready to go for that. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if Rick Carlisle had a little birdie in his ear say, hey, your boy's going to make it. Or I don't know.
I'd like to think that was just from Carlisle's personal stash. Let's pop these bottles.
They just have champagne ready to go, expensive champagne.
They were cheersing.
It's not the Andre champagne that you get from Walgreens. I think it's $5. It's not any of that stuff.
No.
When's the last time you had champagne? I got to think. It's been a while since I had champagne.
Probably some wedding maybe.
My brother's wedding last June probably. Yeah.
I think I have some at the house. I think I may need to break that open tonight.
People casually drink champagne?
No, they casually drink wine. No, champagne's champagne's for a big occasion. I would agree with everything you said. I would agree with. The only thing I would say is the other reason that you could like it, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, and I wonder if he'll say something, if he'll be asked about it next game, tonight, if he'll be asked about it actually tomorrow around the Hawk stuff where I know media availability. I knowing Tyrese Halliburton, I'm betting that it irks him that he's not an All-Star.
Which, again, add that to the box that's important in terms of...
Yeah, and maybe he uses that. And maybe he uses that, to his advantage. You're right. I mean, the last, 20-some-odd games, he has been great. I mean, you look at him, he's probably I think I saw a stat, he's basically 20-10, 21-10 over those games. But the first, 10, 12 games or so were so rough for him. He was really trying to find his game, but... Listen, it's not a big deal, but you do feel good for a guy like Pascal Siakam, who has who is in this is seen and kind of heard as a negative. He has just been so steady for this team. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's knocking down shots. He's knocking down threes. He's going to give you at least 20 a game. You know he's going to be a leader. You know he's going to pass the ball. You know he's going to have 7 rebounds. Like, he is just a set it and forget it type player, and there's some super value to that. So good for him. And listen, Halliburton, next year you make it. I'm sure he's pissed off he's not on the team.
44 years ago tonight, that was the first time Gene Cady and Bob Knight squared off in this series. Here we are with another installment of the rivalry. Purdue, a 11.5-point favorite. That's what it opened up at.
It's up to 12.5 right now on ESPN.
12, okay.
On ESPN Bet, it's 12.5 right now.
It is rising. That's a big number. It's quite the damning number, certainly. But inside of Mackey tonight, these teams will meet 8 o'clock. I assume it was Gus Johnson and Jimmy Jackson's. Actually, Jason Benetti and Robbie Hummel will be on the call tonight. So Hummel seemingly working the 130th straight game that I have watched.
Have you watched a game without Hummel? I've watched a few, but have you watched any? Like it's funny because I thought it'd be Gus Johnson. Then when you said it was, we found out it's Hummel. I'm thinking, of course it is. Because it's a game we're going to talk about. So Robbie Hummel, he has been on nearly every game that we've talked about on these airwaves.
Literally every one. Purdue ran Indiana off the floor in both matchups last season. We'll see how it goes tonight. Indiana, if you want to save your season, you at some point have to get one of these.
Yeah, Zach Osterman, I want to play this sound later, was on with Jake and Jim, and he actually disagreed with Jimmy. Indiana is in this odd spot to where they can still, I don't want to say easily, but they have so many opportunities that they can still make the tournament here, right? It's just one of those things where you feel like all hope is lost if you're Indiana because you played so bad. I mean, they have, including tonight, KB, they have at least 7 quad 1 opportunities. And then UCLA, Penn State, and Washington right now are all quad 2 opportunities. And Washington's no good, but that's a road game, so that would be a quad. That would be a quad to win. I don't know the psyche of the IU fan. To me, the IU angle, and I hate this for Purdue fans, the IU angle is more interesting because you want to win, but you don't want Mike Woodson to have any feel good, and you kind of want to speed things up to the end of the season. And then you mentioned Purdue. I mean, number 9 in the country. I mean, Purdue is sitting there in this perfect spot to where they themselves can get some of these wins, and we can talk about them kind of concreting themselves as a 2 seed. So I'm excited tonight. I think the bigs for Purdue are going to have to bring it. They're going to have to stay out of foul trouble. And then I expect Braden Smith to eat Miles Rice for, to be able to eat his lunch in this game. I expect Braden Smith to be fantastic, and I expect Purdue to win. That spread's good, though. 12.5, that's a tough one.
These 2 teams, again, they will meet down in Bloomington coming up in February. It's a Sunday afternoon game. They both will have their next game coming up on Tuesday. So we'll get you set for that. Butler in the nation's capital tonight, taking on Georgetown. And again, reminder, Pacers 5 o'clock tomorrow. Obviously, it is a big 48 hours here in the city of Indianapolis. Mark, you made the rounds yesterday.
I saw that. Yeah, what did you do?
I was all over the place.
So where'd you go? You went to the airport?
Went to the airport because I was told, there's some very cool stuff going on. Okay. So I went there, check it out. Plus, Ashley had to do a couple things. So, swapping out seats. I'm like, here, I'll jump out at departures. You do a lap, and I'll, then you can go in there. But yeah, they have tables set up so you can go in there. I mean, first of all, there's WWE stuff all over the airport. I've never seen that for any event where, Indianapolis does it right with big events, but they've got signage and pictures and everything like that. There's tons of tables, and the lady's like, "Are you trying to make a poster right now?" Because you can make Andy would know, watching in the Attitude Era, there were signs galore.
Yeah, sure.
So you can make your own signs and everything like that.
Those signs, KB, they're things that you cannot say on these airwaves.
And they specifically
make College Game Day look like church.
Yeah, and it's a bit different because they say keep it clean and everything like that. But you can do that. There's backgrounds to pose in. There's cool posters to give out. It's all free stuff and everything. So that was cool to see. Then went downtown, and Fountain Square's got some cool stuff going on. A bunch of stuff there, murals, and there's restaurants with Sun King collaborations with wrestling-related beers.
I didn't know that. I need to check that out.
Hot Boys Chicken has a Sun King collaboration.
They're everywhere.
It's called I want to say it's called I have to look it up. It's called Suplex Super City or something like that. Something like that. It's a chicken and waffles beer, which I am highly intrigued by. And then there's stuff downtown. You've got the street signs. You've got all kinds of stuff. And then the WWE Superstore, which is open at the Indiana Convention Center, that started yesterday. A giant store. The easiest way to access it go to the Maryland Street entrance, go in there, just walk in, go right, go left, you're right there. There's tons of like merch, so whether you're looking for like Royal Rumble specific stuff or specific WWE Superstar guys, there's stuff there. There's live podcasts going on. There's WWE Superstars all over the place. There's meet and greets left and right. There's a ton going on over there. So there is plenty to go see.
And again, SmackDown tonight inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Then the massive crowd for Royal Rumble tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Things begin over at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Mark, you may not know the answer to this, but they have like replica belts of like the World Championship belt and I don't know how much, if you saw how much they were, but when
couple hundred.
Yeah, but when Raw came to Louisville, I went and I saw a dad. You're going to love this. I saw a dad buy his 3 sons one of those championship belts each.
That is bonding.
And they
that is father-son
They got to be $200, $250. The dude spent $600 each.
Are they as big as some of the children?
I mean, they're nice and they look real, but they're $200-$300. The guy might have spent $1,000 on championship's belt.
Shout out to Terrence, by the way, who works at the Indiana Convention Center. I bumped into him as I was leaving. He said, just want to let you know, I love the show, and I love the WWE segments you've been doing to try to educate Kevin this week.
Well,
Let's
good.
Go, Terrence.
We'll do that at 8:45 today.
To Terrence. It took me a little bit to get to the McMahon documentary last night. I did have to consume a little bit of Pro Bowl skills competition. And
yeah, we may get to that.
Did you watch it?
I did not see. Did Jonathan Taylor do what I've been told he did? Let's talk about it on the. So he
Again,
did. So it's true.
Feel Good Friday to start the show.
Right.
Feel Good Friday to start
I've been
the show.
trying to find the video. I did watch a little bit of the dodgeball. All right, coming up on the other side.
Lefty Quentin Nelson. Lefty Zaire Franklin.
I saw him. Matt Painter actually did speak with the media before today's game. What did he say? Plus your news and scores from overnight. It's a Feel Good Friday right here. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum March 10th and 11th.
A reminder for Purdue and Indiana fans, Steve Reed, A.J. Guyton, two certainly players that those fan bases remember quite well. They'll join us coming up. Steve Reed, 8:30, A.J. Guyton, 9 o'clock, Andy Sweeney. It is a Friday. It is a morning check down, and I assume you'll start with the rivalry up in Mac.
Yeah, let's start there. 8 o'clock tonight on Fox. You can watch it. It's Purdue and Indiana. Now, this one started, like KB mentioned, at 11.5. It's up to 12.5. Purdue is favored. Matt Painter met with the media yesterday. Here's Painter on the Hoosiers.
They play a couple different ways, obviously, when they have both their bigs in versus when Luke Goody plays the 4. So, I think that's what jumps out more than anything. It's just making sure you're prepared, to how they play the game, with two different lineups during the course of the game. No matter who starts, at some point they'll have both bigs in. At some point they'll have him in, playing the 4. And that normally ends up being Ballo unless there's foul trouble. But you really don't know because, Malik's coming back from his injury.
I give Matt Painter credit. He tried to make Indiana sound as good as possible yesterday, and I give him credit for meeting with the media. And my man Matt Painter will stand out there. He talked for 21 minutes with the gas bag media out there getting ready for this game. So again, Purdue and Indiana, 8 o'clock on Fox.
Butler 3.5-point underdog, 6:30 at Georgetown tonight. Reminder tomorrow, Pacers. That is a 5 o'clock tip. They're taking on the Hawks. The Hawks have been terrible as of late. I think it's 8 straight losses, something like that. For Atlanta, Jalen Johnson, who's had a really nice early start to his NBA career, he was just announced out for the year. The shoulder injury. You will get the number 1 pick, Zachariah Risa-Shea, or however you say his name, averaging 11 per game for the Hawks. So this will be the final home game for the Pacers before they head out west. It is a 4-game Western trip coming up next week. All-Star announcements last night. Pascal Siakam, a reserve. Tyrese Halliburton, not a reserve. We gave some thoughts on that in the opening segment there. Very deserved, in my opinion, for Siakam. Halliburton, totally good with it, and I don't think very deserving. You start to list the East guards, Andy, and it's like,
I know.
No Halliburton, no Trae Young, no Tyrese Maxey, no LaMelo Ball. I mean, there's a lot of good guards that are not.
We had Tyler Hero
in the game. Well, Tyler Hero's
he made it.
Yeah,
no, I'm saying Hero made it as a reserve. I think Maxey was one that I think a lot of people have been. I don't want to say complaining, but if you look at these snub lists, Tyrese Maxey on the Eastern Conference is a little bit higher. Now the Western Conference has 4 or 5. They probably have a little bit more talent over there in the Western Conference.
I asked Rick Carlisle on Tuesday, what do you kind of do selection criteria-wise? Because, again, the coaches select their reserves, and he made it clear that he holds winning as a big element on his ballot. And if you look at the reserves, I want to say all 7 of them, their teams are currently in the playoffs.
Okay.
So that maybe explains
Makes
your
sense.
Maxies, your Balls, a little bit more from that front. So, again, 5 o'clock tomorrow inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse, Pacers and Hawks.
Yeah, the only other thing I had today, Caitlin Clark. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. I'm sure that you did. She and the Fever will be playing an exhibition game on May 4th there in Iowa. They'll be playing the Brazilian national team. So that was announced yesterday, and I can only imagine how expensive those tickets are going to be.
Yeah, that's
can you
be
imagine?
Absurd. Yeah.
I mean, you're thinking, what, $250 to get in the door? Am I crazy saying that?
No, because that
right?
I've been to that arena. I mean, what's it? Probably 10. It's just one big bowl there.
12,000 maybe.
There, and again, she'll be in the building on Sunday for her jersey retirement. That'll happen Sunday afternoon. Iowa USC. Just one note on why the Brazilian national team. I would assume Damiris Dantas for the Fever, a former member of the Brazilian national team. So a little bit of a tie-in there. But yes, a preseason game at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Easy for me to say. Coming up May 4th for the
Why
Fever.
have you been there? What did you go see an IU game or
Yeah,
something?
Indiana, Iowa. What was that? My senior year. Matt Gatens went off.
Okay.
And then we went to a bar after the game, and it was only us, meaning the fellow student writers, and Gus Johnson.
Well, where's everyone at? You're in a college town with like 45,000 kids.
Sunday,
what are we talking about?
I want to say it was like a Sunday, maybe 6 o'clock or like 4 o'clock tip. So by the time we got out of there, it was either like 9 or 10.
Well, they were studying. They were getting ready for Monday's classes.
Certainly.
That had to be it.
They were.
So
Matt Gatens went off.
Well,
That's all I remember.
Good for you. I've never been to that arena, but I know that's going to be a big deal. All right, coming up on the other side, a positive thought on the Indianapolis Colts. We have a couple. And what's at stake for the Hoosiers and Boilermakers? We'll talk about that. It's a feel-good Friday. It's not a football Friday. It's a feel-good Friday. It's a wake-up call right here on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Purdue fans, Steve Reed at 8:30. IU fans, A.J. Guyton at 9 o'clock. 44 years ago tonight, it was the first ever matchup between Gene Cady and Bob Knight, two players that played for those respective individuals. Coming up later in the show as we get you set a little over 12 hours away from Indiana Purdue from West Lafayette. I mentioned to you earlier, we'll get to a positive feel-good Friday Colts element here coming up in a few minutes.
Now, we're not going to play the dopey music, are we?
No,
or are we? What do you guys want to do? Okay,
so
it's
now
not,
we're going against tradition.
So it's not an official during the season, hey, the Colts have lost 3 out of 4. Okay, so it's an off-season, say something positive about the Indianapolis Colts.
Now, again, that'll happen in a few minutes. I can't do it right now.
Why is that?
Did you watch the Pro Bowl last night?
Okay, I have not seen what you're going to say. I searched for it.
I had a bad feeling.
Sports Center skipped it. I saw a little bit of the dodgeball. I saw the big lineman spike the ball.
So dodgeball, I guess we can start positive there. Quentin Nelson was the last one left for his team.
Yeah, Nelson was great.
And he was a dancing bear.
Quentin Nelson looks like he'd be good at dodgeball.
Now,
let's just be honest.
I don't know if the velocity with the left arm, Joe Burrow, Burrow was on set when the dodgeball was going on. He wasn't maybe the most complimentary of the form necessarily of Quentin Nelson.
Hey, settle down, Burrow.
But him and Zaire Franklin, they actually hung in there a little bit for their team. Both lefties, which I had no idea. I don't know if Shane Steichen will be dialing that up in the playbook at any point here. So I did appreciate Nelson. He was literally 1 against 6 at some point, and again hung in there for a couple of guys that got out. But the relay happened earlier, and I guess I probably should have understood. Kevin, it's a relay. They're gonna have a handoff for the relay,
and we stink at that as a country. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Remember,
the USA
go back,
and the Olympics,
go back to the Olympics. We dropped the damn baton every single time.
So, Jonathan Taylor, I think he was the anchor, if I am remembering correctly.
He was, because Gibbs, I did see Gibbs cross the finish line, obviously, first. The NFC won that one.
So he went up against with Jahmyr Gibbs. Those were the final two respective NFC and AFC relay teams. And, again, Gibbs' squad has given him, I don't know, let's call it a 10-yard lead, something along those lines. And sure enough, as the exchange is happening to Jonathan Taylor, what do you think happens to the football?
I had a couple people send me messages. Hey, JT just dropped the baton. Of course he dropped it.
Which was a football.
Yeah, I can't find it anywhere, because if you go and search that, it all comes back the Denver Broncos game.
Well,
so
you want to add insult to injury?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Do you know who handed the ball off to him?
No, I don't. Who was it?
Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain.
Oh, of course
Jr.
it was.
I'm like, of all the players in the Pro Bowl.
Of course, yeah.
We could go with 14 other AFC teams.
Couldn't be anybody else on any other team.
It's
Had to be that guy.
Broncos player,
of course,
handing the ball. Jonathan Taylor on the turf.
Remember last year at the when the NBA All-Star game was here, how bad Scotty Barnes was at the skills competition? He dribbled the ball off his leg, and the Raptors were they're 65 seconds. Everyone else was 30 seconds because he dribbled the ball.
We don't know the rules, but in reality, they were just so bad at it.
The dude dribbled the ball off his leg like he had never dribbled a basketball before. So was it? You saw? I still have not seen it. So send it to me on Twitter if somebody, if you can find it. I need to look a little harder, I guess, during the break. I mean, was it bad? He dropped it, hit the ground. He went back. I'm sure everyone was smiling, but at that point, it was over. Even if it was a clean handoff, he was going to lose, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better then.
In all likelihood.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go positive here.
Okay.
I do this annually, I should say, on our website. We get into off-season stories, and I've done this for years now. I mean, hell, I've worked here for, 7 years, something like that, where we evaluate the GM and the head coach of the Colts, and do this, again, on an annual basis, and try to stick to that past year, okay? So just, again, the evaluation for Shane Steichen, it would have been year 2, and for Chris Ballard, it would have been year 8. And, again, I label it as wins and losses. So what did they do well in the previous year? What did they do poorly in the previous year? And as I've tweeted out these stories, they have certainly drawn quite the reaction from people and commenting on the evaluations of those two individuals. So Andy Sweeney, I think we've talked about the negatives
Oh, you think? You think?
Quite a bit here over the last month. So can I spin cycle it for 4 minutes on a Feel Good Friday?
I think we should absolutely do that. Go ahead. We have 4 minutes. Go ahead.
To boil it down to you can only tell me the positives of Chris Ballard and or Shane Steichen from last season, what would those be?
Do you want me to? Okay, so I'll go first on Ballard. And I think you know where I'm going with this. We know the negatives. The negatives are out there, and the negatives are true, by the way. I would say positive with Chris Ballard is it looks like, and I actually do trust him when it comes to building this offensive line and drafting for the offensive line. And then just as a secondary one, a slash offensive line, and it seems like, and this is one reason why you would let a guy like E.J. Speed go. It's why they probably ultimately, I know you guys talked about it when Bobby Okereke left. I think he does a pretty good job at the linebacker position as well. So like Jalen Carlisle's, I think it's a guy that will get playing time, and I would expect him to be a pretty good player, quite frankly, then moving him to a college safety to a linebacker there. So I would say first and foremost, though, would be the offensive line. Last draft, they got two guys that are passing the baton. We mentioned passing the baton type of guys that I think both of them will end up starting. They're kind of they're multiple. Gonzalez played a couple different positions last year. So if you told me that he went out in this draft and got another, offensive lineman or two, or we'll see what they do with Will Fries, I would not be surprised. I mean, he took a late round pick and found a left tackle. Not everyone is, hey, we're going to draft Quinn Nelson and plug him in for a decade. Not everyone is that. So if you ask me, Ballard drafting the offensive lineman, the hog mollies up front, I think he's pretty good. I think he's very good, actually.
I think I could get behind that.
Okay.
And I think that's really hard to do, by the way, is to pass the torch on the offensive line in a rather seamless manner. And we'll see how it plays out. Obviously, 2025, I think, could be a huge indicator, especially if it is Tanner Bortolini at center, Matt Gonzalez at right tackle. We'll see about right guard. But I can hear you out there. The bar is admittedly low, very low here. But I think you exit last season feeling the most encouraged about the wide receiver position as you have in a while.
Yeah. What can A.D. Mitchell get you?
Well,
right.
Well,
but I don't disagree.
Can we stick to positives here for just a second? I think Alec Pierce individually had a tremendous season.
He did.
I think he came up clutch for you in the fourth quarter and overtimes of games. No receiver in the NFL had more catches, or a higher percentage, I should say, of catches go for first downs than Pierce. He wasn't just a one-trick pony down the field. I thought Pittman Jr. gutted it out with the back injury. If you look at it at the end of the year and you look at his numbers, given the back injury and the quarterback play, not bad. I think Josh Downs, maybe it tapered off a little bit for him, but I think, again, you're encouraged there. And, you bring up Mitchell. Obviously, the production was as unreliable as about, me trying to operate a tractor. Can't imagine I'd be very good at that.
When's the last time you were on a tractor? A lot of John Deere's in the Bowen household.
Yeah, me now to the old.
What's funny? Can I interject you with something? My mom's parents in Tennessee. He was a farmer, and there is, and obviously I'm not a farmer. I'm sitting here being a sports radio gas bag, but I've always lived in cities and metropolitan areas. But there is a small part of me that wonders, what if I carried on that tradition and I was a farmer in West Tennessee? It's like a 5% chance, a 5% of me that's like, what if I just carried on the tradition and I was totally different and I was up at 4:00 this morning feeding the animals, getting the hay ready, and doing whatever the hell farmers do?
I guess that's what Michael Pittman Jr. is doing today,
yeah,
right?
He probably is.
Speaking of that, on the A.D. Mitchell front, though, again, I almost don't even want to acknowledge him in the answer, but I do, because he's just such a bigger topic, and there's so much context that I feel like you have to throw in with that. So let's just focus. I do think you are encouraged about wideout. You lack the dog, maybe in all caps, but I think you actually have some nice depth at that position heading into next season. So that's where I would go for another positive. And really the last one, Andy, because I can't give you many more than this, and this is a backhanded compliment, but it's an important element to having the job that these individuals have. You have to admit when you're wrong.
It's a good point.
and they were wrong on defense.
Right.
And they admitted that they were wrong. It took too long, in my opinion.
Yeah, it took a year too long, probably.
But they at least did it. And you know what? If you want to make a Pacers analogy, Kevin Pritchard got there with Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner of like, oh, too bigs. Look, they're great players, and they're young, and they're different skill sets. It's like, yeah, but. And then finally he got there. And look what happened. You could make the argument he saved the franchise. Sounds like, it's Nancy Leonard at the telethon back in the day.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, though, when I say that.
He did the right thing for the franchise, and the poor Kings had Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox, and they're losing a ball. They lost Halliburton. They're getting ready to lose Fox.
He got this franchise back on the tracks. And
Correct.
Now all of a sudden they are at a point that they haven't been in, probably a decade. So that, again, it's kind of a backhanded compliment, but it's a big part of your job when you are in that. If you get the opportunity to pivot, which obviously Jim Irsay has given Chris Ballard numerous times to pivot, for years Chris Ballard hasn't wanted to do that. Well, finally he has. So it's a backhanded compliment, but I would throw it in the positive category if you're evaluating last season.
Yeah, I'll get to Steichen here in a second. Just to react quickly to the wide receivers, I agree with you, and if they had good quarterback play, consistent quarterback play, the numbers for those wide receivers would be way better. Way better. And A.D. Mitchell would probably be a little bit better. Downs would be better. Mitchell, all those guys. Alec Pierce, you could throw 15 catches maybe onto all those guys, end of year stats. All right, for Shane Steichen, I got to be honest, it was difficult because we don't have much data on him. He hasn't made the playoffs. You had all the Anthony Richardson nonsense this year. They didn't really beat anybody this year. They beat some crappy teams. I would say, and even though this is partially his fault, and a Colts fan may say, well, Andy, you're a jackass, it's all his fault, he has kept the team afloat. They did not fold this past season. He has kept them afloat through pretty below average quarterback play. And I know he's an offensive coach, so it's like, well, am I giving him credit for that? I guess I am. I'm giving him credit that the Anthony Richardson experience thus far hasn't worked out, and with Joe Flacco and Gardner Minshew, he has kept them as a respectable team, whereas I think some coaches in some situations would win 4 games with Gardner Minshew and Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson completing 47% of his passes. I know it's not much. I have no idea where you're going to go with Steichen.
Well, to be honest with you, I kind of just grouped Steichen in with Ballard a little bit there.
Yeah,
on the last part. Individually with Steichen, I'm really like, I think I can sit here and be like, all right, was it a sophomore slump? Was it a bit of a regression? He's 500 after 2 seasons. I guess to your point, it's not horrific by any means, but certainly I thought whether you want to evaluate him as a head coach in the handling of the entire operation, if you want to evaluate him as a play caller and the offensive production from last season, you can't sit here and talk about positives. Again, can you throw in Whiteout? Like, okay, whatever. They identified, who knows, Downs in the draft, something along those lines. But that's probably where I stop. I don't want to give you fake positives anymore.
Well, I was about to say, it's getting negative, so let's just stop there. All right, so how's that? We did 5-6 minutes there. Is that okay with everybody?
I think it's
Does everyone feel good on this Friday? Come on.
Feel good
you started to kind of get a little sad there.
Well,
we need to stop this
I almost queued up the Enya.
Yeah, you were right there on the edge of jumping on Shane Steichen.
Well, speaking of sad, I guess it depends on what side of the ledger you're on tonight. You said it's risen to 12, opened at 11.5.
12.5. Yeah.
Purdue favored by tonight. If Indiana pulls off the upset, what happens?
If Indiana pulls off the upset, you can look at this and say, hey, we can save our season. Again, I look at them and say they're playing a bunch of good teams.
I guess how is probably the better way I should have said
how
it.
They do it? Well, I think there's a few things. I think you can't get crushed at the 3-point line. You cannot turn the football. You can't turn the ball over. Indiana has had spurts where they turn the ball over. And Matt Painter even kind of said this yesterday is, I think Matt Painter feels like the only way Indiana wins this game is if a bunch of the Indiana players have really, really great games. Like they play above the back of their baseball card, as you would say. And I think you're going to need some of that. Listen, the guards cannot be crushed by Braden Smith. Braden Smith can't have 22, 10, and 7, and Miles Rice shoots, 2 of 10 from the field. Kanan Carlisle doesn't do anything. Trey Galway can't make a free throw. I just think if you're Indiana, You keep it close to where you have a shot down the stretch. That's the only way I think it happens if something magical has happened. We're going to talk to A.J. Guyton. I mean, listen, A.J. Guyton, he won many games in Mackey, and then Purdue turned around and beat them at Assembly Hall. So I think turnovers is going to be key. I think three-pointers is going to be key. Indiana's is going to have to make more than they normally do. They can't go, 4 of 21 and expect to win the game. What do you think?
Well, I do find it a bit odd. You look over the last 4 years, the only Big Ten team to beat Purdue 3 times is Indiana. I mean, how weird is that?
Well, things happen. I mean, things happen in these games, man. I mean, Indiana, if you told me they came in and a couple guys played way above their skis, that's what happens in rivalry games.
Boiler Bill, the tweet here of,
oh boy,
Painter should throw the game so Woodson keeps his job. That certainly is quite the Purdue take.
I mean,
here
the Indiana fans is maybe in this game they're not in a pickle.
I feel like
but
this is the
every
bucket.
other game they're not.
I feel like it's a little bit like the bucket game. Both sides maybe are banding together. We're reaching across the aisle here.
Yeah, well, that might be the case.
In all seriousness, I am curious who guards Braden Smith. Caden Carlisle was thought to be a great on-ball defender. I think at times this year I can see that, but boy, he's been uber inconsistent. Is that a Leal matchup? Starting lineup for Indiana is nothing that's etched in stone. Weirdly, too, Braden was very good in Mackey last season, but you look at his numbers in this matchup, and it's not very good outside of the Mackey game. Now, Kevin, if you're going to say to me, who am I betting on, Indiana to figure out or Braden Smith to figure it out?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I'm going to bet on a guy that I think is a first-team All-American with how he's played this year. But 5 of 33 in the other 3 matchups, combined 15 points. I mean, that's not what I would have guessed from Braden Smith at all. I think the only real hope for Indiana is, can Ballo play like a first-team All-Conference guy? Which, again, I think at times he has. And then, therefore, does that leave Trey Kaufman-Renn on the bench for foul trouble? Last year, if you look back on the 2 matchups, Khalil Ware, who I think had a nice season for Indiana, he got into early foul trouble in both matchups.
He did.
Just was Peyton Sparks was playing big minutes for Indiana in the second matchup.
That's a good point.
I would start there, but at the end of the day, I don't trust Indiana in that environment, and I trust Purdue. And I do think, Purdue's role guys, CJ Cox in particular, I think Jakari Harris has given them a little bit more lately. Obviously first, and, those minutes expanding have been nice. I think they're still waiting on Heidi and Colvin. I think in these matchups, I just trust the role guys on their home floor a little bit more.
Yeah, I think all that is fair. One thing to watch, and we'll take a break here, is, I don't want to call them the other guys, but, I think Ballo will get his. Now, is it going to be efficient? Is he going to take that ugly jumper that he takes sometimes from 10 feet? I think, Malik Renew, and Painter talked about this yesterday, Malik Renew was poor the other game against Maryland, but towards the end of the game, I thought he got his feet under him a little bit. And he ended up with 10 points. I know at the end of the game, he almost dribbled the ball off his leg, but, I think Malik Renew, especially with having a week off between games, did they have a full week off with the Maryland
Sunday
game?
Was the Maryland game. So close to it.
I mean, close to a week off. I'm expecting this to be the best version of Malik Renew that we've seen in, a month and a half. So I think that is promising for Indiana. And then it's just does Anthony Leal, can he get you a couple buckets? He's going to play. I mean, he's going to play 15, 20 minutes. He may start in this game. What do you do with him? And then, Luke Goody is a guy that has proven this year that he can get hot. And when he gets hot, he can knock down a three. He can knock down some threes. I tend to think Luke Goody needs to have 4 or 5 3-pointers in this game. He's one of the only guys that had a high percentage.
Which, again, he did at Ohio State. And
for Purdue, first, is he going to be in foul trouble? With some of the injuries they have on the front court, he and Trey Kaufman-Renn need to play, and they need to play a lot. And I expect Kaufman-Renn to have a pretty good game. I mean, I really do. But, if First gets in foul trouble and Ballo and Malik Renew are not in foul trouble, that is the way Mike Woodson would probably envision this game going. The best way, I guess.
Miko chiming in here, tuning in tonight to see the Keep Woodson sign.
That's pretty good.
Now, Northwestern student section went with was it higher Woodson?
No, it's extend Woodson, right?
Oh, that was a sign, but they had the higher Woodson chant.
Yeah, I guess so.
Which is kind of hard to chant extend Woodson, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and Woodson's already hired, so I don't know. You got to do better than that.
I hate
Come
to
on.
challenge the intellect of Northwestern students, but yeah, that one was a little awkward. But that kid that did have the sign, that was excellent.
I'm telling you, Purdue, they're not going to allow any jackassery on the signs. That's my guess.
That's
my guess. Like, you might get some chance, but there's not going to be a sign that's going to denounce Mike Woodson.
You're saying that
they're going to be nice, and then they're going to try to beat him by 25 points.
The integrity of the paint crew does not allow for that?
Matt Painter won't allow it. What if it's a 25-point game? I mean, we've seen Indiana give up the rope. 10 minutes to go in the game, they give up the rope, and it's a 25-point game.
Do you think Indiana's ever lost 3 straight to Purdue by 20 or more?
It's a good question for Scotty J. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, because they lost by, 20 and 21 last year?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, pretty sure. So
Scotty,
we'll get back. We'll get back to that. Obviously, a full day. We have Greg Rakestraw coming up next. Steve Reed going to join us at 8:30. AJ Guyton at 9 o'clock. It's a Feel Good Friday. Wake-up call, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Shout out to listener Brian. I shared earlier in the show, watched the first 2 episodes of the McMahon documentary last night. Excellent. I'm really looking forward, I said in all seriousness, to watching more of it. Andy said that before you know it, I'm going to be holding signs up at Monday Night Raw here at Futures. I'm going to take Tuesdays off. I'm going to be at all the Raw shows here coming up. Brian goes, how about the sign saying Bowen 316 says, "We regrow hair."
I like it.
Back in the Attitude Era,
Brian, pat yourself on the back.
That would be a sign. Mark, you know this. There were so many signs.
Oh, yeah.
It was all signs that you could literally take in a sign that said anything. Like, I don't think they took or checked almost any sign. So, yes, you could have sat in the 106 section and you could have had that up, and you and WeGrowHairIndy.com would have had a nice pub for several hours.
There are signs from the Attitude Era that are screen grabbed, and everybody's like, how in the hell did that get on television? Why was that approved? Why was that allowed in? It was wild.
Last night, Greg Rakestraw with a retweet of our show account saying, "I'll do my best to not do a Titus O'Neil on tomorrow's show." That made Mark Dykton smile a little bit.
It does.
Greg Rakestraw with us now. Rake, on a scale of 1 to 10, you are closer to 10, right, on the wrestling fandom scale?
I would be a 7 or 8. I am probably much more familiar with the product of the 80s, early 90s, and then again, the Attitude Era. But I spend way too much time scrolling on Facebook and seeing like classic wrestling posts appear, on my feed.
Did you have a favorite or two, Rake? Anybody out there that you really liked?
Well, much like you, I grew up with Memphis wrestling because that was the territory days, and that what was shown every Saturday morning at noon on Wave TV, Channel 3 in Louisville. So, guys like Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett, superstar Bill Dundee, and some of those would make the World Wrestling Federation and others would not, but that was the wrestling I grew up with. That's what I would go see at the Louisville Gardens. I remember seeing a WWF show at the Kentucky State Fair at Freedom Hall, probably would have been like 86, 87, 88, and the place was absolutely packed. So I have been to shows at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, but again, not as active on it as I used to be.
I learned about the territories last night. I had no idea.
Oh, I mean, Memphis wrestling was a big deal. So, Rake, I had my mom's family lived in West Tennessee, and so do you remember the name of the announcer? It was Dave Brown, who was also a local weatherman there locally in Memphis. Dave Brown, he got punched a couple times.
The announcer, so Dave was the weather guy, was the general manager of Channel 5 in Memphis, and so he would be the play-by-play guy when Lance Russell was off doing other things.
Gotcha.
When Lance was available, Lance was the lead announcer, and then Dave would slide over to the color commentary position. Lance worked like for WCW, NWA for a while, but those two guys are legendary broadcasters in the wrestling business.
Speaking of a legendary broadcaster, we're talking to one right now. That would be Greg Rakestraw, ISC Sports Network. Greg, I actually want to begin with the Super Bowl. Andy and I have touched on this a couple times this week. There are so many local ties to the Chiefs, and like these dudes play in the game. They have 4 Indiana high school products that all got in the AFC title game, and I'd say both the defenders play quite a lot. George Karlaftis, West Lafayette, Drew Tranquil from Carroll High School. You go a little local, of course, Carson Steele at Center Grove, Peyton Hendershot, Tri-West. I assume Steele would be the one that you probably know the best. Any other memories from Hendershot at Tri-West, Karlaftis at West Lafayette, or Tranquil up in Fort Wayne?
Well, in George's days at West Lafayette, I was going to do a few more games in that direction. I remember George was the kickoff guy, not returning kicks, like literally he was the kicker and was a straight-on kicker, and that thing just went like, it was kind of like that character in the remake of The Longest Yard of Totoro, the ball, the automatic onside kick, kind of the way that George kicked the ball. But I had his state championship game, back in 2017 against Evans Memorial, which was a phenomenal game. Wasn't Georgia's best game defensively, because I think West Lafayette won that game 45-42, but it was a tremendous game. But the thing that I always come back to about George, and this is about to be proven right all of 6 years later, there was so much hullabaloo about Jack Kaiser being Mr. Football and not David Bell. David could have handled it better and was so classy about it and squelched the controversy and won a lot of hearts and minds with how he responded to it. But as I would tell people, the real issue, and they frankly changed the voting process since that time, was that George Karlaftis was not one of the finalists. Because I would tell everybody and anybody that would listen, hey, listen, we have 3 Sunday players in this group, all right? Bell is 1, Karlaftis is 2, or Kaiser's 1, Bell's 2, and George Karlaftis is 3. And right now he's played for 3 years and playing for his 3rd Super Bowl. Some of that is just lucky timing who drafting him, but the kid can really play, and I've known that dating back to West Lafayette High School.
Greg Rakestraw with us, Payless Liquors Hotline on this Friday on the Fan. Kind of silly, and then we'll move to obviously Purdue and IU tonight. I went back, high school, obviously even at Ball State in his time now, short time, UCLA and now in the NFL. Have you known a time where Carson Steele has not had the long hair?
No. I remember him getting playing time as a freshman. I think I called his first game, which would have been Center Grove and Warren Central. And he has always looked like Thor. So, no, he has always had that ridiculous mane of salad on top of his head.
That is the voice of Greg Rakestraw. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Rake, I was thinking about this earlier in the week. We saw the announcement of McDonald's All-Americans, Braylon Mullins from Greenfield Central. Jalen Harrelson, obviously, was at Fishers, now Lumiere. So 2 Indiana, prep kids off to the McDonald's All-American game. I for some reason, I thought it had been a while since we had 2 in the game. It really hasn't been that long to put that brain of yours to the test. Can you remember the last time 2 McDonald's All-Americans from the same class from Indiana?
Can you give me a year?
Gosh, I feel like the year you're going to get it right.
Right, that's kind of why I'm asking this question, so I can look smart. That's the exact reason I'm asking it to you.
How about this? It's happened in the last decade. If you go back a decade, you got Trey Lyles and James Blackman Jr. That was 2014. It has happened since then.
Was it 2021?
It was not. It was 2017 with a man that was named to the All-Star team last night.
Chris Wilkes was in the game in 2017. Cal Guy was 2016. So now I got to think out loud. Who was the other guy that would have been in 2017 along with Chris Wilkes?
Think Harrelson path.
As in somebody from La Lumiere as well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Named to the All-Star team last night for the Western Conference.
Oh, this is so bad that I'm not getting this.
Oh, why are you doing this
Rake,
to Rake? You're going to ruin his day.
Are you hungover, Rake? Were you at the bars last night?
Actually, I was. I had 3 old fashions last night. So,
good for you.
Well, I've seen you throw back a couple of those. You could certainly do that. Jaron Jackson Jr. would have been.
Well, yeah. If you had said 3 years at Park Tudor, won a state championship.
Yeah, that's a layup. Come on now. I mean, you're not playing JV trivia. You're at the varsity table.
Again, I had 3 old fashions last night. I actually had a night off, so a little JV trivia wouldn't hurt anybody today.
Greg Rakestraw with us, Payless Liquors Hotline. Purdue, IU tonight. Purdue trying to get that, 1 seed, 2 seed. Just all the quad 1 wins. IU trying to make the tournament. We know all the hoopla around Mike Woodson. We also know last year, 20 and 21 respectively, those were the differences in the games last year. So IU needs a good showing tonight. What do you think happens? What does your gut tell you?
Purdue wins. Now, is Indiana capable of beating them? Of course they're capable of beating them. But that would be asking all of that talent to kind of meld, mesh, rise the occasion, and we haven't seen the proof of that. Listen, if Ohio's the transitive property, Ohio State beat Purdue, Indiana just beat Ohio State, of course it is possible that Indiana wins the game. But again, all signs to Purdue. I don't think it's going to be the blowout that last year's games were, just because I don't think that's this Purdue team, but let's say Purdue by 8 or 10 tonight.
What's on the Greg Rakestraw schedule for the weekend?
High school hoops, as is usually the case. So tonight, Ben Davis and Carmel. Still no Mark Zachary for Ben Davis, getting closer. No Alex Kudo, who sadly is done for the season, is Carmel's top player. Then tomorrow night, it will be Carmel at Fishers. Fishers is 16-0 going into tonight's game. I believe their win streak is now at 29. The last team that beat them, Carmel, 53 weeks ago, their only loss of last season. Tonight, Fishers has Franklin Central. They should be 17-0 by the time they get to that game. So back-to-back games for Carmel, but Fishers is the team that obviously is catching everybody's attention locally, and we will be there for the game tomorrow night at 7:30.
It's an absurd run by Garrett Weininger and company there for the Tigers. He is Greg Rakestraw. We always enjoy our Friday chats. Rake, have a great weekend.
By the way, I want to throw this out there. I want to give a tip of the cap to Mark Dykton with the educational job he has done on this show and on his posts on 1075thefan.com this week. Well done, Mark.
Thank you, sir. That is very nice of you.
I love that. I'm learning, Rake.
We're going to get you hooked one way or the other.
Bowen 316 sign. That's Greg Rakestraw, Payless Liquors hotline.
Mark, do you remember PG-13? Sorry, you're on the phone. PG-13 came out of Memphis. Oh, yeah. I remember watching Memphis wrestling. Remember Coco Beware?
Oh, yeah,
sure,
of
you
course.
remember him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the parrot,
he spent some
That
time
was
there.
Fascinating to get a little bit more educated, and nothing against Mark's education level, but last night watching the documentary, how McMahon just nabbed all these territorial wrestlers.
Scooped them up.
And where was I? Silverdome, right? Was that WrestleMania 3?
Yes.
That
Hogan
was,
and Andre. Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
at you.
Iron
You
Sheik.
are locked in.
This is
Oh,
unreal.
I was all over it.
This is Iron
I
Sheik.
told you guys I was going to watch it. I was locked
stunned.
in, boys.
You need to go on YouTube, or I don't know if Peacock still has them, and go through. I know Mark's
Maybe
going to do it
want
at
to watch
8:45.
Hogan Knows Best.
There.
Oh, yeah.
Brooke Hogan, wasn't she there? I have too many Hulk Hogan jokes that we can throw. There's too many jokes that you can
Hulk had
throw
a
out
very
there.
prominent role in the documentary early on,
Mhm.
which, obviously had a very prominent role, period, early on. But, yeah, we're starting to get more into Vince McMahon, the individual.
Yeah, well, good luck.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Buckle
Yeah,
up. There's
goes
not,
down some
there's
roads.
not a lot
Say,
of good things there.
I feel like I got to put the seatbelt on there. It was a good watch.
Oh, good for you. I like that. You fooled me with Jaren Jackson too. I totally forgot about him. I'm looking like,
Jaren
oh,
Jackson
yeah.
Jr.,
I had to look
Chris
at the,
Wilkes.
I had to look at the sheet.
You got to go back to 2014 again. James Blackman Jr., Trey Lyles, 2012, which that was my assumption. I was like, the 2012 classes
Right.
beyond loaded. That was Yogi Ferrell and Gary Harris. So obviously Odin Conley. But yeah, I don't know. For some reason, when I saw that earlier in the week, I'm thinking probably nothing since 2012. I kind of forgot about Trey Lyles and Blackman Jr., but the 2017 there. I mean, the Lumiere angle, I think, kind of throws some people off a little bit of like, you forget a little bit about whatever, Jalen Harrelson or Jaren Jackson Jr., but that is Jaren Jackson Jr. He's been an all-star before, right?
I want to say he has. I mean, don't forget either Brian Bowen. If you're gonna go La Lumiere.
No, that's some Louisville
forget
drama.
Don't forget about him. A 5-star who landed in Rick Pitino's hands. I had no idea. I don't know how he got him. His family's living at a very expensive hotel in Louisville. I have no idea how he got him.
Speaking of Louisville drama, did I see Terry Rozier's name?
Oh boy,
in the gambling world yesterday?
Yeah, this one I smiled at. So there's a story out there. I believe it was officially by the Wall Street Journal. Reported this, and then we need to get this guy on in the next couple weeks. We'll see what happens. But Pat Forty of Sports Illustrated, who, friend of the show, we've had him on many times here. He also had a little bit more of a thorough story. So I'll tell this as best I can. The story that came out yesterday, and there's a couple different things. So Terry Rozier, what was it, last year? Trade deadline, if I'm not, or was it 2 years ago? He got traded from Charlotte. He made a good amount of money. Jordan paid him a pretty good chunk of change there. Rozier,
I swear he's averaged 16 points a game for his entire career.
Yeah, that's the kind of player he is, and he's a good player. He's a good player at Louisville. Now, the reason I smiled at this, when Louisville got in trouble with the stripper scandal, in the dorms and stuff, Terry Rozier was a name that was out there quite a bit. When he was a recruit from Cleveland. And so, and Terry Rozier was a fine player. I think they made an Elite Eight one time with him. And so he's a fine player. He goes to the NBA, first-round draft pick, has always made a nice amount of money. He plays for the Miami Heat. And and this is now going back to 2023 when he was with the Charlotte Hornets. There was a game against the New Orleans Pelicans. This is March 23rd of 2023. Rozier started, and he played 10 minutes, and he scored 5 points before he took himself out of the game, citing a sore foot. He did not return to the game. In fact, Rozier did not play again that season, okay? And again, I don't know exactly what they found there. Now, if you remember, Jonte Porter, Michael Porter Jr.'s brother, was the one over the last year that was banned from the NBA. The NBA received word, there were some irregularities with Terry Rozier, and specifically this game. The NBA looked into it, did not find anything. This is going back now more than a year ago, but apparently there's now a federal investigation, and they're bringing back up the Terry Rozier stuff. Obviously, Jonte Porter, who, again, in the last year and a half has been, we talked about this story, we've been doing a show together for this, that Porter is kind of the face, a guy who has been banned from the NBA. And as Pat Forty writes, this is professional basketball that's being looked into and college basketball that is being looked into, and this is all done, and the quotes in Pat's story are from the people that you really don't want in your life, and that's the Eastern District of New York. They're the people that have the conviction rate of 99.9%.
I always get very intimidated when I see them mentioned.
No, whenever you see the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York, you know you're in trouble, and you know they probably have some sort of goods on you. So if you're the Miami Heat, you still have a couple years. I mean, Rozier has 2 years of making more than he's got $50 million plus on that contract left with the Miami Heat. So it's a federal probe. The NBA is obviously helping out in any sort of way, but Pennsylvania is involved, New York is involved. So there are different cities and states now that are involved, and I guess I'm not too surprised. But these guys got to realize, do not throw away, if you're Terry Rozier, $50+ million, to try to win someone money on DraftKings or ESPN Bet. But this is a story that's a big story, and it's one of those that we'll keep getting like little pieces of as we go. Who knows what other names are going to be brought up? And again, this is NBA and college basketball.
Well, there's times I thought the team in Bloomington potentially has been throwing games lately, so maybe they'll pop up in this probe.
You know what, Mike Woodson? What if he rallies the troops tonight? What if old Mike Woodson has the boys ready to go tonight? Come on.
Scotty has delivered this stat to us. We asked this earlier in the show. Purdue won both meetings by 20 last year, 20 plus. They're favored by, you said 12.5 it's climbed to?
Right now, yeah.
For tonight, according to Scotty's research here, the only time in this rivalry that you've had Purdue or Indiana win by 20 or more points 3 times in a row, you have to go back to 1901, 02, and 03.
Well, first of all, I feel bad that we kind of gave Scotty homework.
He lives in that era.
Well, he does.
We're injecting something into Scotty's veins right now with this. The final scores of those 3 matchups.
Okay.
Purdue won 32-8. 71-25, and then 52-16. I don't know what happened in the 71-25 game.
No kidding. 32-8 sounds like a JV basketball score in Southern Indiana. 32-8. Come on.
Yeah. Jeffersonville over Providence down there. So yes, if Purdue somehow gets it to 20 tonight, you got to go back 120 years.
Wow. I'm kind of rooting for that now. It's a great stat.
Stop.
Come on, Hummel. Get that stat. Scotty, send that stat to Robbie Hummel so he can say it. How many IU fans get frustrated that Hummel's on the call tonight, too? I mean, I love Hummel. I think he's good, but there's Indiana fans that can really.
Jason Benetti, Robbie Hummel tonight, 8 o'clock. Again, Steve Reed, former Purdue guard, who certainly was a nice player at Purdue, but probably most remembered for being on the line when Robert Montgomery tossed the chair. He joins us at 8:30. A.J. Guyton at 9 o'clock. Andy Sweeney. Let's check it down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum, March 10th and 11th.
Yeah, tonight, 8 o'clock, it's Purdue there in West Lafayette hosting the Indiana Hoosiers. Both teams need it for different reasons. This clip is a little long, but Matt Painter, I think Matt Painter's fantastic in these press conferences. Mark knows from cutting sound, long answers, very long, 2-3 minute answers. But here's Matt Painter yesterday on the rivalry.
You want to win. You want to beat your rival. You don't want them to have the upper hand on you. For us, we want to win the Big Ten. That comes before the NCAAs. People always put their focus on the NCAAs, and we schedule that way. We prepare that way. But when you're playing and you're in the trenches, man, it's hard. It's hard to play 20 games and be the best. It really is. And so, but we don't look at it as just another game. People say that, so you look at it like another game. No, not at all. It's a rivalry game, man. It's cool. Like anybody that's been in a conference growing up and had a rival, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like Cubs, Cardinals, Duke, North Carolina, things of that nature. It makes it enjoyable. It's probably more for the fans, right? But I am a Purdue fan, so I just happen to coach the team.
Like him throwing out Cubs Cardinals there. Surprised he didn't throw the Reds in there.
Well, he's a big old baseball fan. Matt Painter. Reminder, Purdue 2 games back of Michigan State in the Big Ten standings, as Matt Painter references that. They'll go to Breslin here coming up in a few weeks. Butler 3.5-point underdog tonight at Georgetown. All right, Pacers back in action tomorrow. We'll see about the health of Andrew Nembhard, that back injury, Benedict Mathurin, the illness. Rick Carlisle seemed to be a little bit more optimistic earlier in the week on Nembhard, but we'll see again how that plays out. It's the Hawks in town. They have been reeling, to say the least, here. And on the Pacer news item front, Pascal Siakam, an all-star reserve, announced last night his 3rd all-star appearance. Coaches select those. No Tyrese Halliburton. We'll share some thoughts. I'm totally good with that. Don't think he was very deserving, and also think the man needs some rest.
No, he definitely needs rest. The last thing he needs a groin injury in the NBA All-Star Game. Last thing that I had coming up, May 4th, announced yesterday, the Indiana Fever going to be taking on the Brazilian national team in a preseason game. That's, of course, Carver Hawkeye Arena, I believe, is the technical name there. So I would imagine those tickets in Iowa to see Caitlin Clark play are going to be astronomical.
Yes.
Astronomical.
I would say they will be sold out very, very quickly. And again, WWE descending upon Indianapolis this weekend. It'll be SmackDown tonight over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Royal Rumble coming up tomorrow over at Lucas Oil. So it'll be a busy weekend downtown. Pacers Hawks 5 o'clock tomorrow, and the Royal Rumble beginning at 6 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah, I said it yesterday. It's a good time to own some parking lot space in downtown Indianapolis this weekend with the Pacer game and with everyone from out of town coming to Lucas Oil. Go ahead, Mark.
I was driving around and I saw some that still said $5 parking. And I'm like,
oh,
whoa,
come on, guys. Yeah.
You got a bargain right now.
Yeah, what are you doing? So I'm sure they'll change tonight into tomorrow. All right, coming up on the other side, we'll get you ready for tonight's game. And a guy that I got to be honest, we haven't interviewed. I don't know if you've ever interviewed him, former Purdue player Steve Reed. He joins us next.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
11 and a half hours away from tip time in West Lafayette tonight. It'll be Jason Benetti and Robbie Hummel on the call, and it will be fittingly on the 44th anniversary of the first meeting between Gene Cady and Bob Knight. It will be Purdue and Indiana as a 12.5-point favorite, the Boilermakers. And to talk more about this rivalry and his memories of it, former Purdue great Steve Reed joins us now. Steve, good Friday morning to you. Thank you for the time.
You're welcome, and good to talk with you.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate it. As someone that didn't have maybe direct ties to the state of Indiana upon your arrival to West Lafayette, when did you realize what this rivalry meant?
When I was I came to Purdue and redshirted after transfer from Kansas State. So the first time Bobby Knight walked into Mackey Arena and I was on the bench, and heard our crowd erupt and boo and, all of the things that accompany that, I knew we were in for a different night of basketball.
What makes this rivalry great? Before we get to the chair throwing incident, what makes this rivalry so special still today?
Well, I think you hit on it with your question. I think because over the years there's been so many really, really good players, great players that have come from the state of Indiana's high school basketball system and have chosen to play at either Purdue or Indiana. And so those kids grew up watching and, choosing sides with their buddies when they're in third grade and all of those kind of things. And when they get an opportunity then to do that on the floor and play against each other, it brings a certain amount of intensity that you just don't get in any other game.
I think we'll have 4 Indiana high school products starting for Purdue tonight. I believe just 1 for Indiana. That's the voice of Steve Reed, obviously a great player at Purdue. Back in the 80s, he's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Steve, did Coach Cady approach the game any differently? Was there any emphasis that maybe was different from other matchups? How did he kind of view whenever Indiana popped up on the schedule?
Well, obviously he would acknowledge that we're playing Indiana. But in terms of the preparation, I think he actually tried to downplay because he knew there was no reason we weren't going to be ready to play. And, there's no reason to not get excited about it. And I've always said, when playing, and then when I was doing the radio broadcast after getting out of school, the days that Indiana and Purdue played, it kind of like a holiday. You wake up and there's just a special feeling you have in the mornings when you wake up for that particular day, looking forward to the excitement. So as players, he knew we didn't have any problems. What we did know, Coach Knight's teams, without question, were always the best prepared, and they knew what our plays were better than some of our freshmen knew what our plays were. So they were prepared.
That is Steve Reed, former Purdue guard, with us. Do you know your record against Indiana?
Yeah, we split with them. I played 6 games. We got beat twice when Ted Kitchell and Randy Whitman were still around. They beat us both times. The next year we split, and ironically we split. We beat them at Indiana, and they beat us at Purdue, and that was the year we tied Illinois for the Big Ten championship. And then my senior year, we actually got them both times. We beat them at Mackey, and then obviously we won the chair throwing game.
Which we'll get to right now. Steve Reed with us, former Purdue player, joins us on this Friday on the Payless Liquors hotline. What's the question you get asked the most about the chair throwing incident?
What went through your mind, or what were you thinking when that happened? And quite honestly, my first thought was, and I know I have been ridiculed, and folks have said, I was taught by my dad, who was a basketball coach, that when a ref calls a foul and the ball's going loose, try to get the ball, everything you do to get some brownie points, right? You never hurt yourself. So if my first reaction was, I'll go get the chair and bring it back. That was just almost out of instinct. And fortunately, someone picked it up, and I wasn't able to get a hold of it. But then as I walked back to the line, I'm thinking, okay, at the time I thought I was only getting 2 free throws. But, obviously once I turned around and saw that Coach Knight was getting ejected, and I don't know when the rules changed, but they gave us 6 free throws. He got 3 technical fouls. So having 6 free throws, now what's going through my mind is, all right, we can get an 8-point possession here early in the game, and we could stretch this lead out to 12 points. And so got up, hit the first 2 free throws. Felt really good. They were the kind you practice forever, and they hit nothing but net. I'm getting a little cocky, and I start thinking ahead. I go, okay, now make 4 more. I'm thinking about the 8 points. as opposed to just make the third shot. And I missed the third one. And following basketball, there's three things that you don't do when you're on a visiting floor. You don't shoot an air ball, you don't miss a dunk, and you don't miss technical fouls. Those three things will incite the crowd just about, as much as anything. Well, I didn't have to worry about dunking, so I only had to worry about two of the three, and we didn't have a three-point line. We didn't shoot a lot of long shots, so I didn't have so you don't miss technical. Well, I missed the third one. Of course, the crowd gets a little more excited. I missed the fourth one, and it goes up an octave. I turn around, and Coach Katie, I think, is giving me, hey, get off the line, let somebody else shoot, and I kind of blew him off. And I turn around, and I missed the fifth one. So I've missed three in a row now, and the crowd is really – I had no thought about turning around and looking at Coach Katie at that time because I knew what his demeanor was going to be. So somehow, some way, I got the last one in. So I'm 3 for 6. We don't score on the possession. So what could have been an 8-point possession was a 3-point possession, and I'm not feeling real good about that situation. Well, the other thing that happens at Purdue, you learn by the time you're a senior – Coach Katie, in the game, usually at timeouts, was going to spend the first half of the timeout going over whatever the last possession or two of the game was. And so if you didn't goof up in those two possessions, you probably were okay in the next timeout in the huddle. Well, we'd gone up and down the floor a couple times, so I'm thinking in my mind, all right, he's forgotten about this 3 for 6 debacle. I'll be okay. Well, we come to the timeout, and he spent pretty much the entire timeout telling me that my leadership was not very good at that moment, that I'm a senior, he expected more out of me, and et cetera, and literally ended the huddle, your responsibility for us to win this game kind of thing, right? Basically saying, if we lose, it's going to be on your shoulders. So Troy Lewis and Everett Stevens and Todd Mitchell, Troy and Todd Mitchell were freshmen, so that was their first experience at Assembly Hall. Of course, they went on and had great career at Purdue. But we broke huddle. I called them up and said, guys, my wife's here behind the bench. If we don't win, I might be riding back with her. I won't be on the bus with you guys. So let's try to get this thing done. So fortunately, we won. We can laugh about it. Coach Katie still considered me a part of his family. So all's good.
Steve Reed with us, former.
Great stuff.
That's great stuff. Watching and reading some interviews, I know Katie gave you a hard time after you missed the free throws and you went to the line and you were 3 of 6. Watching the entire long form of night being tossed, I did see you in the background go. And I don't know if I ever saw this before, Steve. You were going to pick up the chair, like you mentioned a minute ago. Were you just going to give it back to the official? What were you going to do with the infamous chair if you did go over and actually pick it up? What were you going to do?
I was going to take it back to the bench. And
that's great.
Sure, Coach and I would love that.
I'm really thankful that didn't happen.
I was about to say.
It wouldn't have been the smart. It wasn't the smartest decision, and it wouldn't have been the smartest execution if I could have. Because who knows what happens at that point. But that was my intent. In all honesty, that was my intent. And but it wasn't really to try to rub anything. It was just from Little League basketball. My dad always said, "Hey, don't make the ref chase the ball. Don't make the ref chase the ball." That kind of thing. So it was a loose item. I was going to go pick it up. So anyhow, yeah, I'm glad that didn't happen. I'm here to talk to you right now as a result.
Great human, Steve Reed, also a very good basketball player for the Boilers with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Steve, one last thing from that game, and I probably should have gone back and watched the full video, but did Knight walk by you and go through what we think is the normal tunnel of where Indiana would come out of, or did he go opposite? I'm trying to remember. I remember one game he bumps Valentine. Maybe that's the one that I'm thinking of. But did he go by you?
Yeah, by time once the second and third technicals were called and the athletic director had to come down and the referees were ready for Coach Knight to be out. We were at the bench. Coach Katie had huddled us at the bench, and their locker room was directly across from there, so there was no crisscrossing of the teams after getting to the locker room at halftime back then. So yeah, he walked out. I'll never remember if you go watch the whole team. It was a February day. It's one of those weird days in Indiana in February where it gets to 70 degrees. And the TV commentator made the comment that, well, it's a beautiful day here in Indiana, and Coach Knight looks like he's dressed for the golf course. Maybe he had other plans. So
he might have, yeah.
That was pretty good.
That's pretty. Steve Reed, former Purdue player. Obviously, the game tonight. Yeah, I know you've done radio. I know you're still following a little bit. How much are you following? This Matt Painter team last year. So close to winning the national title, and then obviously tonight, Purdue favored by more than 10 points, looking to be another 2 or 3 seed. Steve, what do you like about what Matt Painter's done with the program, and what do you think about tonight?
Well, as far as the program, he's done a phenomenal job. As an ex-Purdue player, you can walk around and stop. I live in Savannah, Georgia. I can, put my Purdue stuff out during the winter and feel good about it. But he's done an excellent job. This is a good team. You knew they were going to be good after last year. Obviously, they were really good when you have a player that like Zach Edey. I mean, those just come along once in a generation, right? You just don't get players like that. You knew they were going to be good. You just didn't know. And, I give Coach Painter and the team a lot of credit. They started off fine. They had a good win against Alabama. They got kicked a couple of times. I went and watched them play the Auburn game and in Birmingham, and they really looked demoralized. That was just a thorough, poor game, and Auburn's awfully, awfully good. But since that time, you can tell they're starting to figure out their identity. The guys are starting to figure out their roles. Coach Painter's, found a rotation that he likes that seems to be working, and they're on a pretty darn good roll right now. And of course, Smith is he's one of those guys. If you played him on the playground, you would go home just ticked off, going, "How did he just dust me that badly?" Right? I mean, you look at him, it's not going to scare you, but you get done at the end of the game, and he's got 16 points and 10 assists and 7 rebounds and 4 steals. And you go, good gracious, he dominated the game. So they keep the ball in his hands, right? And the players have said it. It's pretty obvious. As he goes, so do they. And he does a great job making decisions. As much as he has the ball in his hands, to only be turning the ball over as little as he has, pretty impressive.
He's a hell of a quarterback, to say the least.
He really is. He really is.
And he's got one more year, which Big Ten fans around are going to be like, what the hell is that kid still doing?
And he's one of those guys, his senior year, can go, has he been here 6 years?
Literally.
Seems
Absolutely.
like he's been here forever.
Especially in today's college basketball. Steve, great stuff. Can't thank you enough. Really enjoyed the convo. Hope everything is going great in your world, and certainly we'll be watching tonight.
Yep. Thank you very much. Enjoyed it, and we'll talk again.
That's a great Steve Reed right there, former Purdue guard. Thank you to Rob Blackman, voice of the Boilers, the great Blackman family. Him and Stephanie, terrific people. Rob reached out to yesterday and thinking, hey, trying to think of kind of former Katy players to get on. Again, we'll have A.J. Guyton join us coming up at 9 o'clock. He said Steve Reed is a must there. So thank you to Rob Blackman for that.
Yeah, we'll have that up on the podcast center, 1075thefan.com after the show. He was really good, and, we didn't get to talk about it, limited time here, but, he transferred. He was a transfer back in the day. Now everyone's transferring. And so, right there at the beginning of Gene Katy coming to his power. So some really good stuff there from Steve Reed. Here's a transition from that to Mark Dykton teaching you about wrestling. How's that for a transition? Is that good enough for you guys?
Sometimes IU Purdue fans probably have wrestled each other over the years.
So we'll do that next. A.J. Guyton going to join us at 9 o'clock. Appreciate you hanging out with us. It's a Friday on the Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, really enjoyed that combo. That's former Purdue guard Steve Reed. A little throwback to certainly one of the more infamous moments in this rivalry of Robert Montgomery Knight tossing the chair over again. Tonight is actually the 44-year anniversary of the first Knight-Katie matchup. That was Isaiah Thomas throwing a little fisticuffs at Roosevelt Barnes. That led to the donkey on the Bob Knight show.
That's great. I forgot about that.
And he's inviting George King, the Purdue AD, onto the show. George couldn't make it. So we have a donkey on the show. We really need Coach TV show. Well, obviously we need characters, but we really need Coach TV shows back.
You think Mike Woodson's going to do one of those?
Well,
yeah, I'm sure he'll give it off to an assistant coach.
There
is a joke. There is a
I'll
joke.
let that one
the whole
slide.
thing's a joke. You know, the funny thing is, imagine it would have been deemed as a troll move, but imagine if Steve actually would have walked the chair back over anywhere near Bob Knight when all that was going on. And I think we can agree that Hurley would be the coach that would throw a chair in today's game. I'm trying to think who would be second on that list.
Probably his brother. Is his brother still coaching at Arizona State?
Yeah, he's still coaching. They got a couple big time recruits. I'm trying to think who would be second, and it might be the Hurley brothers. I don't know.
It's our guy out in Iowa. It's Fran.
Fran's a good one. Yeah.
Have we not had DEFCON Fran many times this season?
I mean, I feel like I haven't seen Fran McCaffrey do something or do anything
Indiana
crazy.
beat them pretty handily, right? If I remember correctly, a few weeks back. They were kind of in full control. So I guess he never was on edge.
No, he was never on edge.
Purdue, I think, gets him next week.
Oh, okay. We're going to get it then. I can't wait.
Well, maybe he, now his sons are in good hands with Thad
right.
Matta, and
Everything's
he's not
fine.
worried about life.
Sure.
And, Connor seems to be happily in love with Caitlin Clark.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, Thad's feeling good. AJ Guyton's supposed to join us here coming up at 9 o'clock. Mark says Musselman. Yeah, I could see that.
Musselman got Gilbert Arenas' kid yesterday. Big 5-star. Yeah, top 10 kid in the country. So congratulations to Musbus. Yeah, Musselman's crazy. No, yeah, he's a crazy person.
Fran or Musselman would probably be next on the
All
list.
right, Mark, hit some music. Let's go. Final day. It's a Friday. We're going to teach Kevin Bone about wrestling. This is it. This is your final day, man. Let's go.
Okay, Kevin. So we've got a couple ways we can go here. We've done, what have we talked about? We've talked about just setting up the basics of the Royal Rumble. We talked about current wrestlers. That's
Yeet.
right.
Chance.
That's right. Current wrestlers on the roster, catchphrases you'll hear, chants you'll hear. What?
What's my acronym I need to chant? There's like a 3-letter chant, right?
Oh, man, yeah. I know what you're talking about. OTC.
Original Tribal
yeah.
Chief.
I'm like, okay, Allegra for my allergies, OTC, and then I'm chanting that.
So today, we will go into factions, whether they're back in the day, current, get you kind of caught up with the basics. So
factions are the basis. They're like the foundation of pro wrestling, in my opinion.
Did I learn this last night? Maybe I learned
you
some
may
of this
have.
last night.
Let's find out. So I would say the most famous faction that spans like multiple decades is the Four Horsemen. That was Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and Ole Anderson.
Wait, this isn't the Notre Dame backfield?
No. And then they switched him out, like Mongo McMichael, who passed away within the last couple years.
He has not
passed
away. Mongo's not passed away.
I apologize.
Let's not put an RIP
he
on Mongo.
He hasn't passed away?
No. The dog did. The dog that he carried around, I'm sure did.
Okay.
I'm gonna back Andy there. I've accidentally killed a couple of people.
So the Four Horsemen did the famous 4. They would hold up the 4, and they would be dressed to the nines. They'd look nice. They had all the titles. They were suave. They were jerks. They were everything you wanted in a heel faction. So they are the gold standard of factions. Then Ric Flair also joined Evolution in WWF. That was Triple H, Randy Orton, Batista, and Ric Flair. Again, that was kind of a modern day Four Horsemen. Excuse me. But yeah, similar idea, but different, younger talent and everything there. Then we're going to go to probably the most famous faction in my generation, and that is D-Generation X. That was Triple H, Shawn Michaels, the Road Dogg Jesse James, the Badass Billy Gunn, X-Pac, and Chyna. They were awesome. They pushed the boundaries. They pushed standards and practices all over the place.
They did the chop,
Okay.
the crotch chop.
The suck it chant, the crotch chop. They pushed the boundaries. There was lots of bleeps and blurs and
we still see the
crotch
stuff a good amount. I feel like in its celebration modes in other sports.
Yeah, it's the basis. Mark's right. To me, it's very much a basis of today's society. I don't know what that says about us, but it is very much still relevant today.
The high five, the fist pound, and the crotch chop.
Basically, yeah.
They were the epitome of like you were a teenage boy and they were the best group of all time because you're like, I could do that now? No, you couldn't. You got in trouble at school or with your parents.
They were my middle school.
Yeah.
Basically.
The WCW version of D-Generation X and the most popular, I would say,
loved them.
The most popular T-shirts of all time in wrestling. They're still going strong today. The New World Order, also known as the NWO, that was Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, who are with WWF through the early 90s. They jumped ship and they went to WCW. But they would wear just like normal clothes and they just show up on set and everybody's like, what are these WWF guys doing on WCW? Well, they call themselves the Outsiders, and at the famous Bash at the Beach, they said, we've got a third member coming. You'll never know who it is. So they had a match to like just fight WCW guys. Out comes the Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania, the red and yellow, everyone's hero and everything like that. One of the all-time greatest moments in pro wrestling history, Hulk Hogan turns on Hulkamania. He joins the New World Order of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash.
Who did he leg drop? Was it Sting?
It was Randy Savage.
That's it. It was Randy Savage.
It's funny bringing that up because, one of the prominent things last night when I was watching the McMahon documentary was Jesse the Body trying to create a union with the wrestlers. And at that point, Hulk was heavily against it.
Oh, sure he was.
Yeah, Hulk has quite the reputation these days. He's not overly popular. Some say it's politics, but a lot of people are like, well, all the backstage stuff he pulled back in the day, and he's not well liked.
But he did this leg drop, KB, on Macho Man, and people are
Screamed,
stunned,
cried.
and he became Hollywood Hogan. And it was Bobby Heenan who was on the call?
Yeah.
And he was like, just like, you son of a,
he was absolutely
you're a traitor. You turned your back on America.
Well, it's funny. One of the things that
there's garbage in the ring.
One of the things that fascinated me last night, there I'm watching it, all of a sudden Bob Costas appears.
Yeah. Bob Costas, huge wrestling fan.
And it's on Letterman.
Yeah.
And this was when Vince McMahon kind of got to start as a broadcaster. And Letterman, I think it was like the 3rd year anniversary maybe of the show, and he's got Costas and McMahon in a hospital in New York, and they were gonna have the next baby be delivered be the baby of the show.
Yeah.
So here's Costas and Vince McMahon like interviewing nurses and doctors on when the next baby's going to be delivered and who's going to become the baby of the Letterman show.
I tell you, McMahon is one of the great heels. He's obviously a terrible, terrible person. He was a heel. Anyway, go ahead, Mark. Couple more minutes.
No, that's fine. So, yes, the NWO, the Wolf Pack as they went by, but they were reigning terror on WCW for a long time. And then they jumped ship once WCW went under. They went to WWF and made their hay there as well. But you will still see New World Order shirts all over town this whole weekend. They are very popular. Okay, let's go to some modern-day ones. So these are ones that are currently in WWE right now that you will probably see featured on Friday and Saturday. I would say the biggest one at the moment is the Judgment Day. That is Dominic Mysterio, who is Rey Mysterio's son. And then they have a bunch of other guys. There's JD McDonough, Finn Balor, Carlito, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez. They are all in a group known as Judgment Day. They kicked out 2 former members, which were Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest. So Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley are former members. They've kind of been trying to get revenge on the Judgment Day and stuff. That feud has settled down a little bit. But the Judgment Day, very prominent on WWE programming right now. Speaking of Rey Mysterio, he is part of the LWO, which is the Latino World Order. That was also a spinoff of the NWO back in the 90s. But they've kind of rejuvenated it and brought it back. So it is Rey Mysterio, and it's like Camacho and a couple other guys.
He's got to be
Zelina
50
Vega.
years old, man.
He's like in his mid-40s right now.
Yeah.
Rey Mysterio is ageless. He never ages. So he's still going strong there. We've got a couple other ones. The Wyatt Six. They've been a bit absent from television. They're your paranormal faction. They're a bit weird. They've got weird vignettes and videos playing. They come out in the darkness with just like lights around and strobe lights and everything like that. Smoke and mirrors. That is Uncle Howdy, a.k.a. Bo Dallas. His brother in real life was Bray Wyatt, who sadly passed away a year and a half ago. He's kind of taken the reins of the group, and they've kind of reformed and regrouped. But they've got an injury. They've been off TV for a little bit, but they are creepy. They'll freak you out. Every time they come on TV, my daughter's like, "Oh my God, it's the scary guys." That's what they refer to them as, the scary guys.
All right.
Like that.
Now, are these people going to be involved in Royal Rumble?
Yes, they very well could be. Two more, and they're a little bit of smaller groups, but they have a little bit of a feud going on. American Made and Alpha Academy. Now, Alpha Academy used to be a group led by Chad Gable. He is the original member of the group, but he turned his back on that group, and he made American Made because he thought the Alpha Academy wasn't cutting it. So he added some new beefier boys and women, and he made American Made. So they have a bit of a feud going on. So American Made and Alpha Academy you will probably see on Saturday as well as
well, I learned something. I don't know any of the newer ones, obviously. So good stuff. But growing up, those are the big ones.
And there is so there are some events going on downtown as well. WrestleCon, by the way, if you're trying to do something, the downtown Marriott, because there's meet and greets at obviously the WWE Superstore, but the WrestleCon at downtown Marriott, guys like Ric Flair, Sting, Jon Moxley from AEW, Kurt Angle, the Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys, Jake the Snake Roberts, Jim Duggan, Ted DiBiase, Jerry Lawler, Rob Van Dam, and a bunch of other people. It is free admission. Yes, you do have to pay for photos and autographs, but if you just want to go there and just kind of check it out, it is completely free. So
that's
downtown
cool.
Marriott, you can check it out, and there's some huge names over there.
Well, good stuff. So hopefully Kevin Bowen learned something this week.
I'm taking notes.
Hopefully
Are you watching
the
on Saturday? I feel like this is all for naught if you don't watch Saturday.
I'm ready to go.
He's going to. He's good to
Hell,
go.
I might be there. I might buy tickets.
Bring the family. Well, good stuff.
Kevin will be in the McAfee suite.
Picturing the look on Maddie's face if I tell her I'm buying tickets to the Royal Rumble.
I do wish my son Mason were a little bit older. You know, it would translate a little bit more for him. So good stuff from Mark. No easy transition. Somehow, AJ Guyton, who's your great? He joins us next.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Final hour of the week. We're getting you set for tonight up in West Lafayette. Again, it is Indiana and Purdue. 8 o'clock tip from up there. Pascal Siakam named All-Star Reserve yesterday. Very deserved there. His third time that he's been Eastern Conference All-Star. Again, Pacers-Hawks. That's an earlier tip time tomorrow night, 5 o'clock for that one over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Talked a little Royal Rumble. Those tickets certainly about Colts playoff ticket level, really, when you look at the prices in Lucas Oil Stadium. That'll be 6 o'clock, so it'll be a busy time downtown coming up tomorrow.
I'm ready to go, man. Mark's going, so we know he's good to go. That was one thing I was going to ask about him. I was going to ask him today, hey, what's going on? What's the update? We got an update. Mark's good to go. He'll be in the building on Saturday.
Let us go. The building tonight will be Mackey. It will certainly be a lively environment up there. And earlier in the show, we had Steve Reed, a former Purdue guard, on. And as we've done with this rivalry over the last couple of years, we've gone to the ex-player and certainly one of the more decorated scorers ever to put on the cream and crimson. He is A.J. Guyton. He joins us now. A.J., good Friday morning to you, sir.
Hey, good Friday morning to you, too.
When Purdue pops up on the schedule, A.J. Guyton thinks what?
I think it's a great opportunity. No matter what's going on in the season, man, you can right the ship by getting this W.
Well, certainly that's an understatement tonight. Before we get into this matchup and your memories of the rivalry, A.J., I was talking to one of your former teammates. I said, hey, do you have any dirt on A.J. Guyton? He's so gracious to come on with us. Might as well find a little dirt. And one of your former teammates said, terrible singer, below average dancer, but the dude could play. Unreal talent, great guy.
That's awesome.
Do all those boxes check?
They don't check, but I get what he's trying to say. You got to reverse that.
That's fantastic. A.J. Guyton with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Let's start with the game tonight, then go back to some of your memories. How does IU keep this one close? How can they win? And I guess season as a whole, what has frustrated you the most about watching maybe the team play this season?
Oh, man, you got to go up there and stay in the basketball game, man. You can't let it get away from you. I think IU has just let games get away from them, whether it be not making timely shots when they're wide open, or we're turning the basketball over at inopportune times. And in a place like Mackey Arena that feels like everybody's on top of you, and it's probably the loudest building outside of Assembly Hall, in Big Ten. You have to take care of the basketball. That has to be number one. The shot has to go up every single possession with an opportunity to get the rebound. If you miss, but turning the ball over, you'll definitely lose.
2,000-point score, former Big Ten Player of the Year. That's the voice of A.J. Guyton. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. A.J., we had Steve Reed on earlier, former Purdue guard, and he was talking about you could just feel it from Coach Katie when, this opponent popped up on the schedule, being Indiana. What do you recall from Coach Knight when it was Purdue on the schedule?
For me, I didn't really understand it until after the first, when we lost, we got beat pretty good up there, 18 or 20 points my freshman year. And, it was after the game, we came back to Bloomington. Everybody thought they was going to go home. And we went to the gym and we practiced. I mean, we came back. I'm sorry, we got in about 2 in the morning. Then we had to come back at about 6 in the morning and practice. We came back again at noon and practice and scheduled another practice for 3 o'clock. So that's when I knew, we can't lose to this team like that. And he made his point very clear. We ran upwards to 150 sprints that day, in one of those practices with the manager keeping count. I'm sure any manager would tell you and corroborate that story. So that told me how serious the rivalry was for Coach Knight between Indiana and Purdue.
How does it feel to be on the wrong side? How does it feel to lose this game, AJ?
It depends on how you lose. When you compete, anyone can understand, a possession here or there that gets you beat. But it's when you don't compete is when you don't want to be on the wrong side of that rivalry. When you go out there and lose by 20, or you down, or you're getting blown out, or you just don't compete at all. So, at the end of the day, I think the major Indiana basketball fan wants a team that's going to compete, fight, to show enthusiasm, and show that they care about this rivalry. And, that you don't want to be on the other side. I was on the other side one time again that freshman year, and I didn't want to be on that side again for losing like that.
Again, that voice, Indiana fans know it's A.J. Guyton, certainly one of the more decorated players to ever wear that jerseys with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. A.J., up to nowadays, I would say, you are a very proud father, are you not? Could you share a little bit about your daughter right now for the Iowa Hawkeyes?
Yeah, my daughter, Aaliyah Guyton, number 11 for the Iowa Hawkeyes. She's a freshman. She's doing a pretty good job of adjusting to Big Ten life. After coming off an ACL surgery in the middle of her senior year of high school, she managed to get back within the year and is playing solid basketball as a freshman, getting more and more of an opportunity to be productive. So super proud of her, more proud of her resilience and her ability she worked extremely hard, did extra to get back on the floor, and to see her producing, it definitely brings a tear to my eye when I watch the games.
Yeah, if you follow you on Twitter, I mean, you're retweeting a lot of good stuff.
She had 15 the other night.
Good for you, good for her. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Did she take things from your game, or did she tell you to shut up and she'll just take her coaching from the coaching staff there in Iowa?
I don't know if she took things from my game, but I definitely try to give her everything that I could within her physical ability, and that's part of it, man. It's a new way to develop talent now. Kids don't go outside, and I developed just going outside. I never had a trainer or a father to teach me moves and things of that nature. So I've been graceful. Gracious. Been a great opportunity to teach her over the last 8 to 10 years on just showing her film. That's one thing I love watching is film with her, teaching her those moves and showing her what was done and not just talking about it. So, and she's definitely a sponge for that knowledge, and she definitely incorporated a lot of it into her game.
Well, that's great. A.J. Guyton with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. How would you, if you had to, if you were 20 years old again, let's go back in time. If you had to guard Braden Smith, how would you do it?
Man, that would be. It has to be a team effort. And what I love for coaches to do is pick a poison. Which poison do you want to die of? Do you want to die of the 20 and 10 poison, or you want to die of the 30 and 2 poison? So I would definitely put my bigger and more athletic defender on him. Try to contain him, stay in front of him, but the pick and roll actions that they run, which makes it a team effort. And I would definitely have to have a lineup in there where I could switch a lot, where I'm comfortable with those guys playing one-on-one and making him take tough contested twos. That's what I would do. You run him off the 3-point line, make him take twos, take away his ability to impact the game with his passing as well. And then I hope for the best. Great basketball player, playing phenomenal basketball right now. But I think IU has the athletes to make it very difficult for him. But you have to be there, and you have to be a jersey on jersey with him no matter what throughout the game.
Again, that is A.J. Guyton with us here. We appreciate his time on this Friday mornings. We're getting you set tonight, 8 o'clock inside of Mackey Arena, Indiana, Purdue, on the 44-year anniversary of Gene Cady and Bob Knight's first matchup. A.J., last one from me. When you look at Indiana as a program, from afar, obviously, over the last 10 years, it's just not been the success that certainly anyone is used to. You obviously spanned 3 coaches in that time, but what do you feel like the root issue is right now with Indiana in getting back to whatever level you want to define as necessary success for a program that certainly has tons of resources?
I think it's adjusting to the NIL era and understanding what type of player that you're looking for. And I think as a coaching staff, one thing about Indiana schools is, and if you look at, our rival up there, Purdue, Matt Painter's done a phenomenal job of creating a culture and a way to play. And I think Indiana basketball needs to establish a culture and a way to play that's surrounded around competing hard, selflessness, and defense. And you need to recruit those kind of players to get that kind of result. Kids that are not only that know the balance between playing for NIL, but also playing for the university and having pride in the history and tradition of Indiana basketball. And that's not to say those kids aren't. I just think that we're in a transition period of trying to get the best talent versus getting the most competitive player. and then surrounding those competitive players with good talent that they could, ingratiate into the culture. And I think that's the number one word is the culture, man. We got to establish who in the 70s on up, you had a culture of, 4-year players and defense and winning. And then at this time period, we don't know who we are as a culture. And I think Coach Woodson is working on that and trying to figure that out. So once we figure that out, sooner rather than later, I think we can, consistently compete with the best teams in the country.
Well, right now he's a very proud father, as he should be.
Yeah.
His daughter's doing great things at the University of Iowa, and tonight he'll watch his Hoosiers take on the Boilers again, 8 o'clock inside of Mackey. AJ, can't thank you enough, man. Hope all is well. Congrats on Aaliyah's success, and hopefully we can talk down the road.
It was great, man. Thanks for having me, and let's go Hoosiers, man. Let's get one tonight.
That's Big Ten Player of the Year, AJ Guyton right there. That last answer, I think, pretty spot on. And what needs to change. Obviously, there's a ton of layers off of that, but one thing I think Matt Painter's done exceptionally well, Andy, is he's realized it's about putting a puzzle together. That's what it's about. It's not about finding the biggest pieces to the puzzle.
Sure.
It's about assembling it. And, in a way, I thought John Shire this offseason, wanting Mason Gillis to be on his team, was a compliment to Matt Painter. It was, wait a minute, I just watched this dude be an excellent glue guy for you. Just a really nice 4-man next to Zach Edey and, doing everything on the defensive end of the floor and obviously hitting an open shot and being a rebounder. And, Mason Gillis ain't going to hear his name called in the NBA draft coming up here in a few months. But what does Duke do? With all this talent they've got, you know what? That's a good complementary piece that I need.
Yeah, we need an old man on the team.
We're putting a puzzle together. And if you've watched Duke this year, Gillis hasn't played a huge role, but there's been games where he's been needed. And the other night, he had a really nice game for him. So just putting that puzzle together. In my opinion, there's no one that's done it better in college basketball than Matt Painter over the last X amount of years.
Yeah, Matt Painter, I have said this many times, and I want to get back to IU, but, Purdue and Matt Painter, they do things, and it fascinates me because they don't talk about NIL, their NIL. It's not one of the first things, and KB, you know this, for programs, at least that I've covered, and you think of Indiana, and you think of, I covered Kentucky and Louisville, and those programs, you can't go 5 minutes without talking about their program, without talking about NIL and how much a guy might be making. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. In fact, for was it different strokes for different folks? And Matt Painter has been able to do it his way. One thing we haven't talked too much about today, and that is, the Indiana fan is in I could say an odd spot because Zach Osterman was on yesterday with Jake and Jimmy, and Jimmy kind of asked a question to him through the prism of, hey, if they get the win, they play Michigan in 3 games. They play Michigan on Saturday, February the 8th. They have Purdue tonight on the road, Wisconsin on Tuesday on the road. They never win in Wisconsin. I doubt they win in Mackey. And so you're probably looking at 4 straight losses and 6 out of 7. I mean, that is the most likely scenario with this Indiana team. And so Jimmy asked a question to Zach Osterman, if they beat Michigan, but they lose to Purdue and they lose to Wisconsin and then they lose to Michigan State, he kind of feels like they're done. And he feels like I do and you do, like they're not going to make the tournament anyway. But, Indiana right now, Lenardi, for whatever he's worth, Indiana's right there on that first 4 out. Or that next 4 out. And I went and I looked at teams like Xavier, SMU, BYU, Wake Forest, Arizona State, or just a few teams that are right there kind of on the cusp. Indiana has 2 quad 1 wins. I mean, a lot of these other schools are 1 of 7 in the quad 1, 2 of 7, 1 of 6. And so Indiana is in this jumbled mess of probably 15 teams that are trying to get probably at 4 spots or 3 spots at the end. I think what's going to hurt Indiana, if they don't win some of these games, and again, all these are quad 1 and quad 2 opportunities for the Hoosiers the rest of the way, is their non-conference schedule. They just didn't do anything in the non-con, and they got embarrassed twice with no real wins. And they didn't challenge themselves.
Yeah, it was a joke to begin with. It
was a joke to begin with, and I think I'm sorry and I know you're like, well, we play in the Big Ten schedule. Yeah, but that's the excuse that like SEC football used to use. And in college basketball, you can lose games. In college basketball, you get rewarded for your scheduling. And you get rewarded not only by the committee, you get rewarded because it does something for your team. And I think Matt Painter has figured that out going back to the Purdue example. So there's that. And then, the last few years, the committee has said this, KB, and that is it's not always quad one wins, because right now Ohio State is a quad one win for Indiana. And you know who the other quad one win is? Penn State. Those teams aren't tournament teams, at least right now. Okay? And the reason I bring that up is if you're Indiana, how many other tournament teams are you going to have beat? And I think when the committee looks at Indiana, if they truly are on that line, on the bubble, they've said this the last couple years. How many other teams in the field have you beat? And Indiana right now, the answer is 0. As we sit here today, going into February, the answer is 0 for Indiana. So I think non-conference schedule and then having a couple quad one wins is nice, but those quad one wins, it's not, at least until tonight, it's not Purdue and Michigan State, right? It's not Michigan and Wisconsin, two teams that you could look at that are going to be in the big dance. So it is an uphill battle, but also Indiana is close enough to where these games have true value. And then it dives into the age-old discussion of what do Indiana fans want? Simply talking about making the tournament, to me, already means you're a losing franchise. Like, your Indiana basketball shouldn't be simply about making the tournament. But if Mike Woodson turned things around a little bit and made the tournament, I think it'd save his job, which adds another layer to all of this. And I really do think it starts tonight. If they go and they lose by 18 to Purdue, and they lose by 18 to Wisconsin, and they lose by 20, to Michigan State, it's going to be pretty bad, and we're going to be talking about this the way that we talked about the football game and Cignetti and what he did to Ryan Walters.
Yeah, I'm not sold.
There's a lot there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sold on the it would save his job part. But again, who's making the decisions down there? Is it Quinn Buckner? Is it Scott Dolson? That's probably a bigger question that needs to be asked. I'm still thinking about how much it would break me if Bob Knight's having me back at 6 a.m., noon, and what do you say, 3 for a practice?
Imagine if they did that now.
Get back at 2 a.m. after losing. To Purdue?
You don't lose to Purdue. That'll teach them.
Easier said than done. Thank you to AJ Guyton. Thank you to Steve Reed. Enjoyed both those combos. Former players here. Again, game night tonight. It'll be Jason Benetti and Robbie Hummel on the call from Mackey. Purdue favored by 12.5 in this one.
You want to do our predictions on the other side, as if that matters? I mean, I think we're both taking Purdue to win the game. Maybe we don't need to do that.
Gosh, here I
Purdue's
thought.
Purdue's going to win. We'll move on.
When you said that, I was like, wait, is the Super Bowl Sunday?
No, we're predicting Royal Rumble.
And then I'm like, wait, are you
should
going
be Super
for
Bowl Saturday?
Pro Bowl prediction here? Are we picking the tug of war winner?
What do they do on Sunday for the Pro Bowl?
I think it's tug of war. I think it's
it is a flag football game.
It is a 7-on-7 flag football game.
So who's ahead? Is it Eli or is it Peyton right now? Do we have any idea?
I should have paid better attention. It looked like the NFC was doing well last night.
Oh boy, how about that?
And then I think it's the punter thing. You get the punters involved.
The coffin corner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about the punter. I'm more interested in the punting stuff than just about anything else.
Will you watch Sunday?
No.
Did you watch last night?
You set the over-under at 7.5 minutes. I was under. I did give it a few moments. When I realized I missed Jonathan Taylor fumbling, I got upset at myself.
The fact that it was a Denver dude handing off to him, I was like, wait a minute. Is the NFL a script?
Oh, man. I was hoping someone almost got hit below the belt in wrestling. They used to call that a Galata. Do you know why they used to call it a Galata?
No.
Andrew Galata, the former that's right, isn't it, Mark? The former boxer. He used to hit people below the belt. He used to punch him down there, and he lost matches.
I feel like we all had that friend.
Jim Ross used to call it a Galata. That's what they called him.
I feel like we all had that friend in recess who just, took it a little bit too far. And go and blow the belt.
Yeah.
All right, coming up in a bit, we have a wrestling-centric pop quiz. Did I get wind of that?
Yes, we do.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll do that here. Freebie Friday, Jiffy Lube oil change coming your way. Andy Sweeney, lead us off for the Morning Check.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum, March 10th and 11th.
Yeah, it opened 11.5 points. That's what Purdue's favored by. It's up to now 12.5. ESPN gives Purdue an 86.7% chance to get the win tonight. It's Purdue and Indiana, 8 o'clock there in Mackey. We've heard from Painter. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you tell me, Mike Woodson did not do a pre-game
I think he does
press conference
every other game, but I don't even know if he continues to do that.
Why would you want one before this game? Got to get that Maryland pregame press conference in. We're being very nice to Mike Woodson about this. It's fairly Bush League.
Scotty, the list is long at this point. Scotty shared the stat with us. If Purdue indeed wins by 20 for a third straight time, they did it twice last season, that would be the first time in over 120 years that Purdue or Indiana have won by 3.
Let's hear from Mike.
Won by 20 3 straight times.
Let's hear from Mike Woodson. This is going back to the coaches' show on Monday night with Fish. Mike Woodson on the game, the rivalry, and everything else.
We've had our battles with Purdue. Edie was a big part of what they've done in the past, but they haven't really missed a major beat. They're a little different team, but Kaufman has kind of filled the hole as far as the big guy up front. And we're going to have to go in there and commit for 40 minutes. We won there a couple years ago, which was something that I hadn't experienced, in a long time, and it was a good feeling walking out of that building, but, they're playing well at home. I think they've only lost one game maybe this year in that building. So we're going to have to be sharp and not turn it over and defend, rebound with them, and execute offensively.
Shockingly, in the 4 years of the Mike Woodson era, the only Big Ten team to beat Purdue 3 times is Indiana. So 3-3, Mike Woodson all time against Matt Painter. All right, Butler on the road tonight, 3.5-point underdog at Georgetown tomorrow. Pacers, Hawks inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. That is a 5 o'clock tip. Reminder, they are heading to a West Coast trip after this one. We'll see about the health of Benedict Mathurin, illness, Andrew Nemhard with a back injury, what their availability looks like. The Hawks have lost $1 million in a row. Jalen Johnson, who's had a really nice year for him, suffered a season-ending injury. They do have the number 1 pick, Arisa Shea, and he's been pretty good for him.
He's a guy, he can shoot some threes, right?
11 points
I think
per
I've seen
game
him a couple times.
Off the wing. Boy, France, man, they got a ton of talent.
Yeah, who did we have on last week that we were talking to that had a ton of that he talked about it? Who did we have on last week?
Was it Carlisle?
I think it was Rick. Yeah.
I think he might have mentioned that. So again, Pacers-Hawks coming up 5 o'clock. The Pacers are 10-2. They will close out January 10-2. They have yet to play a clutch game in 2025. All their games have been blowouts. Obviously, they've won 10 of them, but even their losses. So we aren't used to the organs ramping up with 2 minutes and 24 seconds to go in a game and maybe a faint defense chant happening.
I'm not going to complain. I think the same thing could happen. Obviously.
Oh, they'll be a big favorite tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah, should be. Quickly, the only other thing I had, news coming out yesterday, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, they'll play an exhibition game on the road in Carver Hawkeye Arena there at the University of Iowa. Obviously, a homecoming for Caitlin Clark. That's going to be on May 4th. And I would imagine, as I've said this morning, those tickets are going to be pricey.
Yeah, and
$200, I'm sure.
Jersey retirement for her Sunday. It's Iowa USC. I did love seeing this from her and her foundation. She's going to donate $22,000 to 4 different Iowa City, state of Iowa charities. Certainly, the Children's Hospital there is well documented. That will be one of them. Special Olympics Iowa, Food Pantry, and the Boys and Girls Club in that area. So, Caitlin Clark, busy weekend for her upcoming.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, coming up in about 20 minutes, we'll have our wrestling-themed Freebie Friday Pop Quiz, so we'll do that in about 20 minutes. Game picks and much more. We'll do it next here on this Friday. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We have a wrestling-centric pop quiz coming up here to close things out.
This is your yeet guy, by the way. This is Jay Uso. This is yeet.
So when this music comes on, that's when I yell?
Yep, you throw your hands up, and you start yelling yeet.
Cheapest ticket, $140. I'm seeing Royal Rumble here. That's Saturday night inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. Tonight, again, you got SmackDown inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Speaking of Gamebridge Fieldhouse, announced yesterday Pascal Siakam an All-Star for the third time. Andy, I said it to you earlier. He's just so damn dependable. And I know it's not maybe the sexiest word to use in describing a player, but good to see the Eastern Conference coaches acknowledge that. He's easily been the most consistent pacer all season long. And I'm good with no Tyrese Halliburton. I think Halliburton has been at All-Star level the last month, but he was not that early in the season. And frankly, and I'm being selfish here, rest I think would serve him well. The guy's been in Thailand and Paris twice in the last, 18 months. And obviously we've, debated, how healthy he is and all of that. I would say not having to travel to the West Coast for 3 or 4 days is probably a good thing, considering they are going to be out west here coming up next week.
Yeah, they have a couple games out west. I think a couple things. Number one, you're right about Pascal Siakam. He is just a solid player. He's very consistent in a league and in a sport that can be very up and down. He's kind of exactly what the Pacers need. They don't need a guy who's 10 points one night and then, might jump up to 31 points the other night. I mean, to me, his value is what you're going to get. You're going to get the 7-8 rebounds. You're going to get the 4 assists. You're going to get the 21 points, whatever it is. And then, when Benedict Mathurin got into it with the ref a week and a half ago or so, I think Siakam has also been very good for the locker room. Some guys don't give a damn about that kind of stuff.
He's got fatherly figures.
Yeah,
too.
I just think for this team, he fits this team so well. And when they got him, I wasn't. You look at stats, and of course, we remember him in Toronto and when Kawhi Leonard was there, and he made a couple All-Star games. But we're not watching Toronto basketball. I just think he has been just such a solid player for them. And then you mentioned Tyrese Halliburton, and you're right. I mean, whether it be the time that he's had traveling around the world, traveling all over the country, obviously for the NBA. And then last year, and I know it would be different this year if he made the All-Star game, but last year, he talked about it, how it was so draining because it was all about him. Halliburton sitting back is probably a good thing, and I think it's also a good thing that it's going to piss him off. I really feel that way. I mean, Halliburton is an ego guy. We know that. All these guys are. Halliburton wants to be there. He wants to be viewed as an all-star and one of the best. And so I would not be surprised if at some point he's asked about it and he talks about it, how he wanted to be an all-star, how next year he's going to do everything to make sure he was an all-star. And this year, he quite frankly didn't deserve it with the way he started the season in the first maybe month, 10 games or so. So, listen, the Pacers are playing the best basketball. Push all that aside, they're playing as good as basketball as anyone right now in the NBA. And instead of being the 7 seed, I think there is a chance they can contend for the 4 seed. I don't think that's crazy at all.
Do you want to make a culpa for your Siakam take originally when he was traded here?
No, I called it lukewarm.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I love you, KB, but damn.
I forgot about
that. Was
Pagano
reacting to your thoughts on Siakam getting dealt.
By the way, I'm kind of low-key sad that we're not going to get I don't know. I mean, we only had him on 4 times? But I love talking to Chuck Pagano. We're not going to have him on anymore. Now he's a coach with Baltimore.
I enjoyed our Chuck Pagano conversations.
I know.
And I don't think the Colts play them next year.
I'm looking right now.
I don't know.
I think it's just Pittsburgh, right? Are they AFC North?
I mean, they get Pittsburgh every year, so I believe you're right on that, but I'm not 100% sure.
I don't see the Ravens on here.
I was looking forward to Tom Allen facing Indiana. That won't happen. We'll get Ryan Walters against Purdue. Washington, I believe, face off against Purdue. Which Barry Odom.
We can't wait for that one.
I don't think that has the same gravitas to it.
Wow. I mean, we'll be doing shows.
Now, you and I talked about this briefly earlier this week, and I know Rick Pitino had a plea. What will the Rupp Arena reaction be for Coach Cal?
All right, so I have a theory on this. There are a few people that Cal got sideways with at Kentucky who are in the media. And so they have he wouldn't do interviews with him and everything else. So they have started this, are you going to boo John Calipari? And it's like, why the hell would you boo John Calipari at Kentucky?
They gotta boo him. Come on.
They gotta. Why would you boo him? He's not the bad guy. He didn't leave he didn't leave the program in disarray.
About the SEC, I know. What are they gonna hold hands and sing the alma mater before the game?
Now Cal's wife Ellen's not going to be there on Saturday because she's sick, and I don't believe that. Cal thinks.
Oh, now you want a doctor's note?
No, I just don't. Yeah, I do. I don't.
You're
I don't believe
wife
it.
On us
yeah,
here.
I don't believe it. And Cal's has been putting out there in the Arkansas media how he thinks he's going to be booed. I just don't see it. The guy won a title. Sorry, Indiana fans, for what I'm going to say. The guy won a title. He made Kentucky for, I don't know, KB, 6-7 years, the most relevant program. If you're a guy in your 20s, all you've known almost is Cal. If you're in the 30s and 40s, you're my age. Your whole entire 30s was Calipari and all these NBA players and the cockiness. They went deep in the tournament. They had chokes in the tournament. But, last year they were like a 2 or 3 seed when Oakland beat him. So it's not like he had this, Tubby Smith had this, and, Bob Knight ran into this, where you have this group of years where you're either not making the tournament or just making the tournament, or you're consistently, losing 10, 11, 12, 13 games. He didn't have any of that. They wanted him to go. It was time, and he bounced to another spot. Hell, he saved Kentucky a lot of money. I think if he would have stayed there, KB, he would have had years like we saw at the end with Bob Knight and Tubby Smith and others. I think he would have had those years where he really struggled. But if you're a Kentucky fan, you got to get rid of him probably at the right time. You didn't have to pay him $50 million on the way out. He and Mark Pope have a good relationship. I think there's no way. Plus, the people that buy tickets to these events, this at Assembly Hall. I mean, these tickets, especially lower level, are very expensive tickets. So I don't think you're going to get some old, Bob, who's 65 years old, 72 years old.
That's not the big Blue Nation I know.
Is going to be booing him. So
what do you mean?
Shame on them.
It's a 20,000 place arena. You're going to
shame on them if they boo John Calipari.
You're going to have the blue collars in the balcony at IU yelling down there. I mean, that's the softest thing that you've ever said.
You think it is?
The boo birds.
Well, why would they boo him? Just because he's Cal and he's back?
Exactly. He took a job in your own conference.
Now, well, they paid him way too much. I will say this. If Cal was number 7 in the country and Kentucky's number 8 in the country, I think this is totally different. Cal is limping in as a wounded dog. He is a wounded animal.
How many times have we seen a coach with Cal's resume, and you just laid it out
not
there,
many.
Everything that he did at Kentucky, go take a job in the conference?
Yeah. It's
super rare.
It's very rare. It doesn't happen a lot. I did find yesterday was funny. Rick Pitino sent a message out as if anyone needs to hear from him in this. Okay.
I love these older dudes on social media.
They can't help themselves.
They just tweet out a video. It's just like all of a sudden the thumbnail is them sitting at a desk, and I'm like, either they're about to resign, acknowledge allegations, or they're going to tell us to get off our lawn about something. And Pitino chose the lawn part.
Yeah, Calipari or Pitino did the thing yesterday. He's like, obviously, I'm not best friends with Cal, obviously. But he's like, don't boo him. He had a great time there. Pitino said something to the effect of, I don't know if you guys could tell, but it broke it only in his thick accent. It broke my heart going back to Camelot and being booed by the faithful. And all I could think of was Pitino literally dropped double birds at the crowd. His teams literally played so tight. They played their worst game of the year, and he and John Calipari absolutely hated each other. It's like, Rick, we know. Rick skipped press conferences after the game there in Lexington. It's like, Rick, we knew that it affected you. You can settle down with a holier than thou.
We will do the pop quiz coming up here.
Who's Notre Dame got this weekend?
In a few minutes. They have Miami, who is horrific at basketball.
God, they got 4 wins on the season, don't they?
At Miami. An opportunity here to win 3 in a row. This pop quiz, would we call it easy on the wrestling scale?
Easy-ish. I think, Mark, 3. I think I knew 3 out of 5, but some of the newer stuff I did not know. So, yeah, I would say it's like a B.
Okay.
Like a B level. Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
All right. Well, give us a call. 317-239-1070, Freebie Friday. This is a Mark Dykton produced.
There's wrestling fans in town. They better be called.
WWE Pop Quiz.
Yeah, they'll know it. Quickly, I mean, just Purdue tonight. They win by double figures.
74-65.
Okay, so that would be a cover then by Indiana.
I think Ballo can cause some problems for Purdue.
Yeah, Malik Renew looked better in that game against Maryland at the end.
I think Ballo has played better, but again, Braden Smith quarterbacking. I just don't think Indiana can follow a game plan. I don't think they can construct a good game plan, and B, I don't think they can follow it for 40 minutes if it's good.
I'll say it's a late cover by Purdue. I'll go something like 77-62. If it ends up close, we'll see. If it ends up to be 25 points, obviously, we'll have quite the conversation on Monday. All right, it's a Freebie Friday. Load them up, 317-239-1070. Pop quiz coming up next.
The Fan.
I made a stop to Working Man's Friend yesterday.
Oh, did you?
It's a salivating burger.
Oh, did you get that burger?
Oh.
I've had it. Oh, yeah.
Unreal.
I mean, is JMV going to eat a burger when he's there? He's lost so much weight.
No,
he looks fantastic, man.
Hell no. He's going to be in the
Dude,
kitchen.
looks great.
Like, oh, that cottage cheese. Can I check the expiration date on it? Can I have some cottage cheese?
Cottage cheese is gross,
He looks outstanding.
I'm sorry.
Shout out to JMV. Not a cottage cheese human at all.
No, I know people that eat it all the time. Not me. I think my wife does. Not me. Nope.
It's like Notre Dame. You love them or you hate them. That's cottage cheese.
You bringing it back to Notre Dame?
Bring it back.
Cottage cheese is Notre Dame. Well, that might be the case. So they did hire, is it Chris Ash?
Yeah, and people are freaking out. Should I be freaking out?
Well, why are they freaking out? It's not a name that I had forgotten about, Chris, to be quite honest.
I had forgotten about him, too. Former Ohio State assistant, for those looking for any relevance. He went to Rutgers. They lost every game like 100-0 when he was there.
Yeah,
as
I remember
their head coach.
that. Yeah.
And I guess he's kind of an ass. So
can he recruit 4 stars and 5 stars?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm trying not to overreact about Notre Dame football on January 31st. I'm trying to get my blood pressure down.
Why don't you just enjoy your season? You were number 2 in the country.
I finally started to move on from the loss.
When did that happen? This week at some point, finally?
They put out like a season-ending video, one of those.
Sure.
And
like a thank you.
Yeah, I felt like I watched that. I was like, man, there were a lot of awesome moments.
You're at the national title game. You're at the legendary.
It's just
state
those
game.
Opportunities don't grow on trees. They don't. And I mean this about college football. As quick fixy as it can be for programs right now.
Oh, yeah.
I.e. look an hour and 10 minutes down the road in Bloomington. I think it's also harder to sustain it.
I would agree. The only thing I would say is the expanded playoff, I think, will be good for Notre Dame.
It will create more chances for Notre Dame, but I still think winning 3 games like they had to is tough.
Right.
I mean, I know the Indiana game was largely a blowout, but, I mean, Georgia and Penn State, I mean, those are battles. And if you want to say it, I don't know, maybe Georgia fans would disagree. They might have caught a break against Georgia with the backup quarterback. So, yeah, those chances it's like the in-state tournament. I've always felt this way about Purdue, and Purdue finally obviously did it. I was like, if you just create opportunities, and Purdue had been what? I think it's like them and Kansas and like Gonzaga. They had this longest stretch of a top 4 seed, however many tournaments in a row. I largely believe, and obviously Purdue had a great team last year, but sooner or later, if you give yourself those opportunities,
right,
the bracket will fall your way, and you'll whatever. And the last 4 minutes of the game, you'll hit your free throws, et cetera, and Lance Jones will hit the shot against Tennessee, and Zach Edey will have the block against Dalton Connect, and they had that. Whereas the Virginia game and the Elite Eight, obviously that went totally the other way. So, it's I don't know. College football just has so much volatility to it. I just think staying power is tough.
It is, but if a team's going to do it, it's going to be a team like a Notre Dame. I hate to say it, but it's the guy. It's Washington. It's Washington. Like Washington went up there. TCU. Those are two good examples. They had magical years, and what happened? Their coaching staff left, and now they're a middle of the road type team in their respective conferences. You mentioned this yesterday. I think it was in this same segment. I did not know this. So the ACC has a new deal with ESPN, football-wise. That's not a surprise. They're staying there with the ACC network and ESPN and everything else. So Notre Dame is going to face Miami. What was it, Florida State and Clemson, at least 2 of those each year?
Yeah. So they've been on a rotation where they play 5 ACC games a year.
Right.
But they have now, I guess, penned something that means they will play however you want to define them, the upper echelon teams of the ACC. They'll guarantee to have 2 of those on the schedule every year. Obviously, for the ACC, you love that because it's a great TV rating draw. Especially the games that, will be on the road and i.e. not on NBC with Notre Dame. So I think this makes sense. Notre Dame has always had a very unique schedule, and how long can that continue to be as unique as it is?
I know.
For example, next year, they have Texas A&M, and they're at Arkansas, and they have Boise State.
Why would USC play you?
Right.
With their Big Ten schedule.
Right. So some of these next year they've got Purdue in the Big Ten. They've got USC, like you mentioned, in the Big Ten. How long are these schools? And are like the SEC schools going to continue to play Notre Dame? They've got a home and home with Bama coming up. I want to say they have a home and home with Texas, if I'm not mistaken, starting up. Are we still going to get those types of games? So I think it makes sense. And if you're Notre Dame, after the Northern Illinois loss, your margin for error obviously was pretty much nothing. Does a beefier ACC slate, like this year they didn't, Florida State they played, they obviously were terrible. They didn't have Miami or Clemson.
Right.
If you would have played Miami or Clemson this year, that would have been a really quality opportunity for you. So,
and those teams are usually good. I don't know with Florida State. I got to see. I think 2 things working against Notre Dame, and then we'll get to a pop quiz, is, conferences are going to go to 10 conference games. They just, I think, will at some point. The SEC's been arguing that, I think, since we were in diapers, if they're going to go to 10 games. And then, I think last year it will be interesting. Last year there was a lot of rhetoric of, because of how the seeding went in the college football playoff, some teams feel like, why would we schedule a difficult schedule? We can schedule nobody and still make the college football playoff. I think there's tinges of that with some power conference teams. Not Notre Dame, because obviously they're different, but I think there are tinges of that with some other schools, for sure.
It is time for our wrestling-centric pop quiz. Mark Dykton, cue us.
Well, pick. Okay.
No, I thought we were going to do the music there.
Yeah, we are.
Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
And you know what? I've thrown in the towel at 9:48 on a Friday. I think I'll just sit this one out. Mark Dykton, you've created the pop quiz.
Okay.
How dare
Andy Sweeney. Andy weighed in as well.
Yeah.
How dare,
you guys tell me what you want to do. I'll ask questions.
I have no business asking these questions.
Probably.
I'm simply
Well, you've watched 2 episodes of the Vince McMahon documentary.
Come on.
I'm simply sitting in the back of the room right now. So you two can handle it from here, and I'll go get a beer.
I want you to write down what you think well, I guess you've seen it now.
I've already looked at it.
Yeah, it's too bad. Okay.
Sorry.
Caller number 4. How does that sound?
I don't think I would have got number 3 right. but maybe that's because I'm still early enough in the documentary.
You'll get there. Don't worry. What number did you say, Andy?
Let's do number 4.
All right. Scott.
Scott, good morning. How are you?
Great. Yourself?
We're good. What's happening this weekend? You going to the Royal Rumble? You doing anything around festivities this weekend?
Just hanging out with the little guy, running errands, taekwondo, basketball.
Are you a wrestling fan? Do you know anything about wrestling, Scott?
I know a thing or two.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go.
80s, 90s.
All right, you should get some of these. All right, Mark, hit the music. Let's go.
He's playing it so close to the vest here. Does he know anything or not?
I can't tell. This might be a failure. I don't know.
All right.
I guess we'll find out.
All right, we're going with this kind of music. So
Mark's got music in the background. This is great.
We're avoiding the final Jeopardy.
Up.
We're going WWE theme music in the background. All right, Andy, you made the first couple questions. So
I'll
you
go
want to
number 1. Yeah, I'll go number 1. All
ahead.
right, so question number 1, Scott. The legendary Jim Ross, who I love. The legendary Jim Ross is a huge fan of what college football team? Nebraska, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, or Texas?
Texas.
Now, this isn't the painter guy. That's Bob Ross.
Yeah, that's Bob Ross. With
Yeah,
the
he
hair.
passed away a long time ago. Jim Ross is the greatest of all time. He really is. You're wrong. You're close, but you're wrong. I'll give you a
another guess?
I'll give you a mulligan on number 1. Again, Nebraska, Notre Dame, or Oklahoma. It's not Texas.
Oklahoma.
There we go.
All right, Scott, let's get back on track here. In one of the more historic moments in WWE history, which former boxer once joined D-Generation X? Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson, George Foreman, or Oscar De La Hoya?
Mike Tyson.
There we go. All right, number 3. Who has won the most Royal Rumbles? And I didn't know this one, Mark. Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Roman Reigns, John Cena.
John Cena.
All right, Scott. The first Women's Royal Rumble took place in 2018. Who won the inaugural Women's Royal Rumble? Was it Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Asuka, or Ronda Rousey?
Not Becky. It's either Becky or Ronda. Ronda.
All right, last one.
Boy, Scott's quick. You got to respect that.
I like that, yeah. No hee-hawing around.
No.
He knows what he wants, and he goes after it. All right, number 5, last one here on this Freebie Friday. The 2023 Royal Rumble saw the first entrant in the match last a record 71 minutes and 40 seconds before being eliminated by eventual winner Cody Rhodes. Who was the man who holds the lengthiest stay in the Royal Rumble? Wow. Roman Reigns, Rey Mysterio, Brock Lesnar, or Gunther?
Let's go with Gunther.
I got to be honest, I didn't know anything about this Gunther guy.
You need to check him out. He's awesome.
Not a thing, and he's the right answer. So let's see. He got number 1 right, Oklahoma. He got Mike Tyson right, number 2, and he got number 5 right with Gunther. Unfortunately, Mark, if you want to give the answers, he got number 3 and 4 wrong.
Scott, stay on the line.
Number 3, Stone Cold Steve Austin won the Royal Rumble in 1997, 1998, and 2001. He's won it 3 times.
Wow.
And then Asuka won the inaugural Women's Royal Rumble in 2018. So, Scott, hang in there. We'll get your information for the Jiffy Lube oil change.
My favorite Stone Cold is when he, what did he do, Mark? He drove a Miller Lite, or was it Coors Light?
It was a Zamboni, yeah.
Oh, was it a Zamboni?
Oh, well, it was a Zamboni, and then he also drove a beer truck in, and he drenched the McMahons in beer. And then Kurt Angle, like a year later, did the same thing with a milk truck.
I did look up some of my wrestling figures online to see if they were worth anything, and none of them are worth too much. I got some that are still in the case, too. I thought, this might be worth something in 10 years. And 10 years was this week, and I looked it up, and they're worth, $8.
I'm currently watching the Peyton Manning, Shane Gillis, Post Malone, Bud Light Super Bowl commercial.
Oh, is it out already? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, they're all in the neighborhood together. Pretty funny.
I got no problem with that.
We've got a little bit of Super Bowl focus coming up, and potentially a player in the Super Bowl, right? Could be joining us next week.
Carson Steele.
Okay, all right. We'll look forward.
Running him down. You mentioned the Chiefs have a lot of, have a lot of local flavor, and obviously he's one of the more, most local flavors with it. I'm excited for this game. I guess I'm gonna have to just root against the Eagles again and just go with the stupid Kansas City Chiefs, and I just can't do it. Do we have any idea if Caitlin Clark is going to be in attendance? Someone's got to find that out. Scott Agnes has to find that out, right? Come on. Don't we have to know if Caitlin's going to be there? Why would she not? This is like her moment.
We know where she'll be this Sunday. She'll be in Iowa City for her jersey retirement. But yeah, coming up next Sunday in the suite with T Swift.
You got to be in the suite with
Mrs.
T Swift. And I'm telling you,
scratching her back.
If they win, I got to find the prop for a proposal from Kelsey.
No way.
You guys think there's? I heard Mark say zero chance. I'm telling you, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Taylor Swift going to get proposed to at the Super Bowl?
Where else would she be proposed to?
Anywhere else. Literally anywhere else.
She's a star. That's the most star. I mean, that's going to be the most watched thing on television.
No.
She
doesn't want to. I don't think she wants to be.
Oh, you think she wants it in a living room with no one watching? Everything she does is in front of the camera.
Well, that's not her fault.
What's who she is?
Well, we'll give our Super Bowl predictions
I hope it happens
a week from today.
I hope it happens.
But most importantly, what's happening Saturday night? What has been predetermined for Saturday night, Mark Tyson?
Yeah, who do you think wins on Saturday, Mark?
Your predictions, because we can bet on this, right?
Yeah,
yes, you can. I am going to say...
I still don't follow that. You can bet on the predetermined outcome, okay? All right. I don't know if I totally follow that, but go ahead.
Let me think about this. I'm going to say... The Final Four, which is always a big deal because the Final Four is always like, ooh, okay, any of these guys can win. For the Royal Rumble, men's is going to be Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Drew McIntyre.
I need to jot these down.
Yeah, I'm jotting down. So I don't know. I don't know McIntyre as well as the other ones. So.
I said the Final Four, I believe, will be Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Drew McIntyre.
What about on the women's side?
Drew McIntyre sounds like a dude doing stand-up comedy.
He is a giant Scotsman. He's humongous.
Sounds like a 3-star quarterback recruit that Barry Odom's
He's
a
pissed-off Scottish guy. Give me CM Punk to win the Royal Rumble.
And when do I need to be locked in? I mean, obviously, I should be locked in at 6 o'clock, but if for some reason I have to attend to my children.
8 o'clock maybe.
That'll probably be the main event, so I would guess that's going to be the final match.
And when's the back nine on Sunday at the Masters?
I'm going to say that's going to probably, if it starts at 6, I'm going to say probably 8:30.
Oh, boy, it's a long ordeal. Okay.
We'll see.
All right.
Oh, yeah, well, like WrestleMania is 2 nights.
The women's match, give me a returning Charlotte Flair to win the Royal Rumble for the women's.
Oh, okay.
And her affiliation with Rick?
Daughter.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, she left for a while, didn't she? Am I mistaken?
She's had a leg injury, so this will be her first match back.
Well, Mark, have a blast. All seriousness.
Yeah,
I know this is your Super Bowl. I know it's a lot of people's Super Bowl. And so people enjoy Indy. Spend money here and have a great time. I think it's awesome. I know it's not my cup of tea, but I know for a lot of people, they love it. So enjoy.
Check out the podcast, 1075thefan.com. Jake and Jimmy at noon, JMV at 3. Have a good